Experts. Double glaze. Infinite glaze.
I see a large IPO on the horizon.
I see multiple journalists on the horizon. Stand by. Friendly IPO inbound.
Team deathmatch. Market clearing order inbound.
We are surrounded by journalists. Hold your position.
Triple glaze.
I see a large IPO on the horizon.
Do it. Let's go. We're live. I think my mic's hot already. Let's go.
We're hot.
You're watching
TBPN.
Today is Wednesday, June 4th, 2025. We are live from the TBPN Ultra Dome,
Dome,
the Temple of Technology,
the Fortress of Finance,
the capital of capital.
capital.
We have a great show for you today, folks. a story that we've been covering for months now is continuing to develop and is now in the pink pages of the Financial Times. This is the Rippling deal drama. It continues, and in their briefing section it says, Silicon Valley spy drama, a feud between two startups over alleged corporate espionage has... Rare case where the drama does not involve the media, actually. A feud between two startups over alleged corporate espionage has taken a new twist after a $12 billion HR software group Deel claimed that rival Rippling had directed one of its staff to pilfer its assets. So they're going back and forth, and today Deel's firing back. Now, I heard a little bit about this story. The rumor mill was churning over this idea that Deel had something up their sleeve and they were going to fire back. Of course, that's the way these things go as these battles evolve. The interesting thing, there's a couple interesting things in here, is that the Rippling allegations resulted in a lawsuit and ultimately, I think, criminal charges. Rippling alleged earlier this year that a staff member at Deel had been spying on behalf of Deel. This is, of course, that send that watch to London moment.
Send that watch to London.
The employee
I'm
locked
actually
themselves.
Disappointed, John.
Yeah.
That is such an incredible line in Silicon Valley history.
It really
I'm
is.
Sad that people don't use it more.
It really failed to
areas of
break
their
through.
life.
Yeah, it's we were discussing this earlier about this is like the most dramatic story of the year in Silicon Valley, and yet I've talked to multiple people in Silicon Valley who have just completely missed it because it still is just HRIS enterprise SaaS drama.
Yeah.
But
most people simply do not care.
they just don't. They're
You'd
too.
have to really pay them to care.
Yeah,
You'd have
like
to get some sort of like payout system going, like X, to be like,
Yeah.
every time you pay attention to this, you're going to get a micro payment.
Yeah, I mean, it just doesn't have kind of the weight of like Elon, Doge, Tesla, humanoid robots, AI, AGI, AI doom, right? It's just payroll after all. Forget it, Jake. It's just payroll. Anyway, in new legal filings seen by the Financial Times, Deel has countered that Rippling has been actively engaged in this is a quote from that, in a carefully coordinated espionage campaign through which it infiltrated Deel's customer platform by fraudulent means and pilfered the company's most valuable proprietary assets. What's interesting is that they're stopping short of naming like a spy, right? And so the actual approach here, Deel has sought to dismiss Rippling's initial claims of direct corporate espionage and has filed a lawsuit in Delaware alleging that its rival is trying to impugn Deel's reputation, and its latest filings were lodged yesterday as an amendment to that case. It alleges that Brett Alexander Johnson, someone I have not met, Rippling's competitive intelligence manager, posed as a customer and accessed details of Deel's products and business practices over the course of 6 months. Now, what's interesting is that access details of Deel's products and businesses. So this sounds like they were asking customers for what Deel was doing, maybe instead of say going inside of Deel Slack. Like there's no allegations that they were inside of Deel's corporate systems, which is a very distinct line to cross. And so obviously the story is evolving, and we've invited Alex, the founder of Deel, on the show. Would love to get his side of it. Would love to get Parker on as well. But of course, our worst enemies, the legal compliance teams at enterprise startups, are getting in our way.
They can figure out some type of settlement agreement that involves a sort of MMA style.
I was going to say cage match.
Pay-per-view on TBPN.
I was going to say cage match.
Because at a certain point, they'll reach some sort of end to the story, but I'm sure there will still be bad blood.
Totally.
So why
it has to be ended in the octagon.
MMA,
in the octagon. I mean, we've been teased so many times with, is Trey gonna box Jason Calacanis, or is Zuck gonna fight Elon? Like this could be maybe third time's the charm here. You know? Maybe this is the one that gets it done.
It's gonna happen.
Fantastic. in Dubai.
Yeah, we'll bring it out to the Gulf, of course.
To the Gulf, of course. For some reason, it'll happen in the Gulf.
I think just the purses haven't gotten quite big enough, right? Like you see some of these boxing pay-per-views easily into the 9 figures. If we can, position this as non-dilutive funding for these startups, maybe there's something to be done. Maybe that would get them over the line of saying, "Yep, I'll put on the gloves. I'll get in the cage."
Yeah. Yeah, it's been a fascinating story. Obviously, these things move like extremely slowly as they go through the courts. So it feels like, with FTX or Theranos, like we got the bombshell accusations, then it took like a year or two to get any sort of, to move past like alleged wrongdoing to actually understanding the scope of what happened. But I'm sure that the courts are working through it, and we will be following it the entire time. The lawsuit, this is from TechCrunch, which is turning 20 years old next week. The lawsuit is also full of insults hurled at Rippling's CEO, Parker Conrad, and mentions his troubles at his previous company's benefits. Irrelevant, in my opinion. At times, there's nothing wrong with having throwing a couple back in the office.
Wait, he had some unfortunate things happen at Zenefits?
Yeah.
Really?
Really? I'm hearing this for the first time. You got the sound effect now.
I missed it on the first attempt.
At times, the complaint ventures into
surprise.
psychoanalysis territory. To understand Conrad is to understand Rippling, the suit claims. Man, everyone's chirping. But, I think this show, we want to be independent. So we're taking the side of Co2 because Co2 is invested in both.
Yes. Let's give it up for
diversification in
crossover
enterprise.
allocators.
Yes, heads I win.
Horses,
heads I win, tails you lose.
Exactly.
That is the real game.
Yeah, we've talked about this before. Ultimately, there's hundreds of billions of dollars of payroll market cap, and they can both be big businesses, and hopefully they get over.
And maybe this is all a sideshow for what's really going on at
ADP.
Quantum payroll. Yes.
This all comes down to both companies racing to develop quantum payroll
for sure.
And that's kind of the real story, and this is just the drama floating up to the surface.
Yeah, and so they're fighting back. Interesting timing too, because wasn't it just yesterday that Deel said it had been profitable for years and is generating over $1 billion in annual revenue? Yes. And so I wonder if there's a sequence of events here where it's like, okay, take a breather, be really silent for a while, then come out with some promising news about the financial health of the company, then fire back in the media and in the courts with a countersuit. But unclear, and it doesn't seem like it's quite as aggressive as what Zenefits found or Rippling found. It's certainly not as it doesn't take you on as much of a journey.
Not a smoking gun, necessarily.
Yeah. I mean, the TechCrunch article here actually says when Y Combinator grad CoTool launched an agentic security platform last month, among other things, sets up honeypots. Its ad was a spoof on how Rippling's corporate spy said he was caught, and so clearly it's become a small meme within Silicon Valley. Anyway.
Yes.
If you want to save time and money and not have any headaches in your back office.
Have you noticed, by the way, that when I point at you, it pops up on both cameras? So I can actually get 2 hands at one point.
Oh, you can. Good. That's good. There we go. That's good.
Anyways.
Go to ramp.com. Easy to use corporate cards, bill payments, accounting, and a whole lot more all in one place. Ramp. Anyway.
Using Ramp is a joy.
Yes, it is.
People have said that corporate cards and spend management platforms are boring.
Yeah.
But anybody that says that clearly has not used Ramp.
We were just pitching Ramp to. We did a photo shoot yesterday, and we were pitching Ramp to the photographer, telling him, "Hey, stop,
we never miss a moment.
We never miss a moment.
Yeah.
Hey, those receipts could be tagged automatically.
He was by the end. I mean, he was convinced by the end.
I think so.
He was ready to.
I think he's ready to switch. Yeah.
And you should be too. Thank you to Ramp.
Anyway.
We have a story here. Microsoft bets on agents to fuel next chapter of AI growth.
Yeah, so we heard that quote from Satya Nadella that the amount of inference that's happening on Azure has 5x'd, and they're generating I think hundreds of billions of tokens at this point. Trillions of tokens.
Yeah.
It's absolutely massive. So the question is, Microsoft's in a perfect place to deploy agents. They have the distribution, but who's actually behind this team?
And we said yesterday they already have 70% of the Fortune 500 using Copilot.
Yes.
Which
is
again,
tough to say what that
it's
means,
hard to
right?
Really evaluate what that usage actually looks like, but
yeah, how would we even do that? I mean, because they were obviously very successful with Teams, right? They got Teams into everyone, and they really did switch over and spike the growth of that company and that product. At the same time, Google's been quoting saying that they're using generative AI search results. And it kind of counts, but it kind of half counts, and you have to discount it a little bit because it's not a consumer choice to move over to that product. It just kind of happens naturally. And so it's interesting to dig into Microsoft's strategy because they seem to be. The way I heard it described was that Satya Nadella has obviously done a fantastic job as CEO of Microsoft, and he's carved out a ton of territory in artificial intelligence. The question is, how much can he hold on to, right? Yeah. And this isn't to say that seeding ground is a loss necessarily. It could be the strategic move, but there's this question of even just to the point of, I want to be a leaser. How much CapEx do I actually want to be spending? Yeah. Do I want to own the land? You could vertically integrate all the way down in the AI factory, but they're partnering with people, they're leasing. They also own data centers. And there's a question of, Microsoft has an AI research team that at one point was training models. Now they seem to be much more model agnostic. And you saw that with Microsoft Build, where Satya highlighted the importance of being able to choose your own model, which is something you can do on GCP and AWS as well. But Microsoft has really leaned into that, even with intelligent model routing within different OpenAI and Llama instances. And there's lots of different ways that they've plugged in. So let's dig into how they're betting on agents. This is from The Information. In March, at a Microsoft all-hands meeting, one of the company's newest executives, Jay Parikh, laid out a rough vision of Microsoft's path forward in artificial intelligence. AI models made by OpenAI and others were quickly becoming commoditized by more efficient models from DeepSeek and Microsoft's own research arm that performed nearly as well for a fraction of the cost, Parikh said. Sitting alongside Chief Executive Officer Satya Nadella and Chief Technology Officer Kevin Scott, that meant it would soon become easier for companies to build their own AI applications, and that Microsoft could cash in on that growing market by redoubling its efforts to sell them tools for doing so, said Parikh. In recent months, Nadella has made similar comments in staff meetings, telling employees that Microsoft needs to focus on platform, a refrain harking back to a speech by Nadella's predecessor, former Steve Ballmer, from the late 1990s, in which he uttered the memorable chant, "Developers, developers, developers." And if you haven't had a chance to go listen to Steve Ballmer's interview on Acquired, it is fantastic. They've been posting a bunch of clips. I've listened to most of it. He really opens up, and it's just an incredible piece of history. It's really fun. There's a clip going up right now where Ballmer talks about when he took over as CEO from Bill Gates, and essentially him and Gates didn't talk for a full year.
Wow.
Even though Gates said, "Hey, I want you not just to be a figurehead, I want you to actually be the CEO. That means I will report to you, you're the boss." But they didn't really, the way he described it was they just didn't really know how to deal with each other anymore, how to work together. It's very, very interesting, like somewhat emotional even.
Wow.
Anyway, Nadella is clearly, paying homage to Steve Ballmer, but also focusing on this idea of platform, which is similar to developers. He wants developers on top of the platform, but you need to put a little twist on it.
I'm actually excited next week at Demo Day with YC.
Yeah.
I want to get a sense of how many companies are building on the
Azure.
broader Microsoft platform, Azure, et cetera.
We talked to someone at last Demo Day who was there handing out tons of credits.
Yeah. Britain.
Yeah, it was kind of
I'm sure he'll be back there. He
credits.
runs their startup team.
And so, I can imagine if the platform is offering a lot of flexibility around these tools, like building on top of that platform lets you switch in and out of different models very quickly, means you don't have to shift as soon as like a new model is going viral. You're just like, okay, I just swap it into my Azure stack. I don't even need to set up billing on a new platform. The comments from Nadella and Parikh reflect a subtle but important shift in AI strategy at Microsoft. No big tech company has benefited more from the frenzy around AI than Microsoft, whose $3.44 trillion market capitalization makes it the world's first or second most valuable company, depending on the week. NVIDIA took the crown on Tuesday. Wow, let's hear it for NVIDIA. So far, the bulk of the company's AI revenue has come through its relationship with OpenAI, and there's this really interesting. Have you seen this chart?
Is just unbelievable.
It's crazy. He's doing so well.
Unbelievable.
Yeah. So there's a good chart here from the AI Bonanza. Most of Microsoft's estimated AI revenue so far has come from its relationship with OpenAI, which includes revenue sharing and leasing Azure servers. So they're making about an estimated $10 billion this year from OpenAI, and then $3 billion from other AI sales to bring their total AI revenue to $13 billion, which seems significant given how nascent
what are the
this
actual?
industry is.
What are the? Is that revenue that OpenAI is passing back to them? Somehow?
Yes. So they get a revenue share from OpenAI,
from selling OpenAI products,
from vending GPT-4 as an API. OpenAI also is paying Microsoft to lease Azure servers for training and inference, and then I believe that they're entitled to a cut of revenue or profits up to that $100
which
million
I don't
cap,
think
right?
I wouldn't assume is kicked in at all.
Yeah,
yet,
me either. I thought it was like net earnings. Yeah. But clearly,
still, that's crazy.
10 billion. Yeah. I mean, it makes sense. They like OpenAI's training and the GPUs are on fire and they need to scale. And so, even if they had no relationship with OpenAI, you would imagine that they'd be load balancing across the different hyperscalers and trying to soak up GPU capacity wherever they could. And so, if you look at
which
OpenAI,
is just crazy. So
the numbers
Microsoft invested $1 billion in 2019, $2 billion in 2021, $10 billion in 2023, and then $750 million late last year.
Yep.
So,
and then they made $10 billion.
Then they're generating. Obviously, it's not necessarily super high margin, but
it's a lot.
It's a lot.
I mean, the margin of Azure is not low. It's over 30%, right? So, they are particularly.
And they still own half of 49% of OpenAI Global LLC.
It's amazing. Satya, it's the best. But again, it's like, he doesn't own it all, and so as OpenAI kind of goes more independent, how much can Satya hold on to in terms of the consumer AI market? If the narrative around OpenAI as the what did Ben Thompson call it? The unwilling consumer tech company, or the unexpected consumer tech company. If OpenAI becomes the next Google, what will that relationship with Microsoft look like? Because they're building their own servers with Stargate. And so that revenue could go away over the long term, even though it seems like they will be partnered for a very long time. Yeah. Anyway, we'll have to dig into it more. We want to have some Microsoft folks on the show, and I would love to know how Azure is tracking against inference versus training loads, because we didn't get that from Jensen in the NVIDIA earnings call, but that seems to be an important question that is on everyone's mind as we hit the GPT 4.5 and the pre-training scaling kind of wall. Obviously, the hope is that we shift to inference very smoothly, and GPU demand continues to grow, and the overall industry grows very quickly. But it's still an open question. We don't have a lot of hard data on what's happening there. Anyway, Microsoft is particularly bullish. This is from The Information, of course. Microsoft is particularly bullish on a new category of AI applications called agents, which will be able to carry out tasks such as maintaining a spreadsheet to keep track of unpaid bills or patching websites after outages with minimal human oversights. Agents are all the rage throughout the tech industry, not just at Microsoft, with other enterprise giants like Salesforce, ServiceNow, SAP rushing similar products to market. The growth of agents could take off with cheaper AI costs, leading to the rise of what some executives call the agentic web, in which most of the world's computing power is taken up by autonomous AI software.
We need to figure out and understand Agent Force, which is Salesforce's digital labor platform, what adoption actually looks like over there.
Yeah.
From my sense is they're force feeding people it, where it's like, hey, you like our CRM, you will also enjoy our digital labor platform, and if you don't buy it, you will, we're just going to charge you more. For CRM.
There's a lot of these products that are seeing like rocketed adoption based on. I mean, it's almost like the bull case for some of Google's tools that like VO3, we were joking about that post yesterday that like some of the products are amazing but hard to find. But at least that if a Google model is going viral, it's authentic. Like people really love it versus it's rarely just, they just stuffed it in everywhere and like it doesn't really count. Like the numbers don't really count. Because it's like it's pretty hard to go and find these models versus if Microsoft chooses to roll out Copilot in every installation of Teams by default, that could trigger a lot of like daily active users, but are they really getting those tools, or are those tools just kind of sitting in the background and then companies are going to other more focused, more dedicated startups or businesses for those agentic workflows. Anyway, for Microsoft, taking advantage of the shift toward agents means making new, inexpensive models available on Azure, and as an alternative to larger models, embracing open source protocols that make it possible to build agents and launching new products that let customers set up their own custom-built agents. Parikh said at an event connected to Microsoft's Build conference, our goal is to build a new stack that allows anyone to build AI-driven applications and agents and orchestrate them. At the center of the shift is Parikh, a former Meta executive who joined the company in October in an unnamed role. Very cool. Just like, hey, we just want you.
Off the org chart.
Off the org chart.
This is the playbook.
Yeah. In January, he became head of a newly formed unit called Core AI that unified groups from across the company, including the company's developer platform GitHub, its internal developer division known as DevDiv, and several teams that previously reported to Azure head Scott Guthrie and were focused on running AI models on cloud servers. Parikh now oversees more than 10,000 staffers at Microsoft. Let's hear it for a massive org. He's got almost 5% of the org chart reporting to him. He's definitely on the org chart now.
Good luck getting him in the same room.
Yeah, you're going to have to rent a basketball stadium to have your staff meeting.
I'm sure Satya could arrange that.
After this story was published, Nadella on Wednesday announced another reorganization to staff focused on agents, consolidating executives running LinkedIn, Office 365, and business applications under Executive Vice President Rajesh Jha, those groups will aim to sell out-of-the-box agent applications to customers, while Parikh's unit focuses on getting companies to build their own agents on Azure. So a little bit of a divide between what's being vended into the Office customers and what is more on the Azure side and enablement of developer workflows on top of Azure.
I'm surprised Microsoft hasn't slapped some agents in LinkedIn yet.
They got to.
Should be able to have an agent that just replies.
That's where Clippy needs to come.
Yeah, bring us Clippy.
We got to bring back Clippy. I think we can make it happen. We're so
we'll
ready.
We'll have
for
Satya
Clippy.
on the show, and the entire time we'll just be like the bull case for Clippy.
I really think it could make.
Like, actually, we don't have any questions. Like, we're
just pitching you.
We're just gonna be pitching you.
Yeah. Microsoft is one of those brands that's like, it's still cool. But it's not fun, it's a little bit like serious business, and just having a little Clippy used to be so much
because
fun.
It's
so efficient,
behemoth, just a monster.
and reliable, and like and
it's reinvented itself multiple times.
But they also have Xbox, they like to have some fun. They like to play some Call of Duty. They literally own Call of Duty. Like that's pretty sick.
We need to get a racing simulator here at the new studio.
Yeah.
Speaking of games, and a golf simulator in the green room to just let guests, start to get warmed up.
Microsoft Flight Simulator. That's been like a 30-year project. Anyway, if you're designing for anything really, get on Figma, figma.com. Think bigger, build faster. Figma helps design and development teams build great products together. Go to figma.com to get started.
It is the backbone of the show. I want to see if they even put customer logo. Okay, so they do.
You're really into the customer logos.
I am. I just think people need to understand like the range.
What.
Coinbase, Dribbble, Dropbox, GitHub, Herman Miller, Microsoft, New York Times, One Medical, Rakuten, Slack. They got them all. They got them all. And you should be on Figma too. Go check them out. Try some of their new products. They are fantastic.
Yeah. They are going to be, so this is another quote from Danny Fish, a Janice Henderson investor portfolio manager who oversees 2 funds that hold a total of $800 million in Microsoft stock. He says there are going to be software companies that are able to embrace and adopt that, and there are going to be software companies that are going to find that are going to find it highly disruptive to their models. Microsoft's ability to embrace that will be really important. So you want to offer enough tools to empower the companies, but you also need to allow the flexibility so you don't lose companies who migrate off platform because they're just like, I'm going to build everything myself with new, I'm going to vibe code a bunch of agents and I don't need you for anything. You want to have like the full continuum, and it seems like Microsoft's in a position to kind of like index the market. It will be interesting to see. We should start pressing more of the founders that come on that are building kind of like agentic and enterprise workflows and see how they're positioned against Microsoft. Are they seeing Microsoft deal cards go up against them when they're pitching, or is it like purely additive? Because I feel like for the Fortune 500, you get a very white glove experience with Microsoft, and they tell you every product that they're working out. But in more of like the SMB self-serve market, it might just be a situation where you see a viral video or get an intro from an investor, and then you start spinning up whatever.
Yeah, I really want to get a better sense of what B2B agents are getting. Have sticky usage, right? I can imagine obviously you see it in developer tooling. It seems like it's getting there in legal. Mm-hmm. Sales, I think, is happening, but at the points that I notice it are when the person, the agents are sort of messing up and saying, hey, I enjoyed hearing you on X podcast talking about Y subject with Z person. It's like actually saying that. I got an email today of somebody that said,
interesting.
Jordy, it was great hearing you on X podcast talking about why this.
Wait, but it hadn't populated it?
It didn't populate.
Oh, it made a
X podcast, why?
That doesn't even feel like an LLM hallucination.
It's probably not.
That feels more like an if statement gone wrong.
If statement gone wrong.
Wow. Well, I mean, maybe for the one person that went on a podcast that's
called
just named X
to talk about
why
a person named Z,
because there's Y Combinator to talk about. There's probably somebody who goes by the name Z out there, right?
It's actually surprising that nobody's said drop the combinator.
Just Y.
Just Y.
I mean, that's what happened with the YMCA. They call it just the Y.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Just the Y. Go vertical with Y Combinator.
Parikh was impressed by the team of Microsoft employees who developed AutoGen, an open source framework for building AI agents, and aimed to move more of those employees into his unit, according to research, including researchers that were previously within Microsoft's research unit led by Peter Lee. But a Microsoft research vice president who oversees generative AI research pushed back on Parikh's attempt to move the researchers to his organization, according to someone who spoke to her. So the information is kind of digging into like all the internal politics at a 220,000 person organization as you're trying to build a different team, kind of build a greenfield AI agent strategy. There's obviously a lot of chips moving around the board, a lot of internal resources changing hands, and you want to hold on to your best people. The internal politics at Microsoft must be staggering given the scale. I mean, it's like Washington, D.C. in size, so it makes sense.
A nation state.
Yeah, I mean, 220,000 people is like a small city, like a medium-sized city, actually.
Yeah,
Pretty
it's
big.
Basically the size of Qatar, I think.
Wow.
Like the actual residents.
Does Microsoft have a 747 yet? They probably should get one.
Yeah, they should.
I heard a funny thing that apparently the Qatar jet was up for sale for like 3 years, and I think maybe no one wanted to buy it because it had been like so overly retrofitted to be like opulent that people were like,
Trump was like,
"There's too much gold.
Perfect.
There's too much gold.
Perfect.
It's flowing. It's hurting the gas mileage. Like this plane is now too heavy. Like we can't do it."
So there's 380,000
Qatari
so like citizens,
close
so
to
quite a
Microsoft.
bit more, but
not that much,
Microsoft
not double.
could look to acquire a small nation state to rebrand it as Microsoft.
Microsoft land.
I mean, it's the ultimate out-of-home ad. It's just to be on the map.
Yeah. Well, speaking of out-of-home ads, Go to adquick.com. Out-of-home advertising made easy and measurable. Say goodbye to the headaches of out-of-home advertising. Only AdQuick combines technology, out-of-home expertise, and data to enable efficient, seamless ad buying across the globe.
We did a photo shoot yesterday.
We're going to be going up on a billboard, baby.
I
can't wait for this. I need to ask
ourselves.
Our photographer. I need to get these ASAP. I'm so excited. We'll be dropping on the timeline. Stay tuned and please subscribe to us on X. Follow the at TBPN on X. I don't know why you would see this and not be subscribed.
There are plenty of people.
But there might be people in the RSS feed or something.
Yeah,
maybe maybe it's like, oh, it's too much content. A, let the algorithm sort it out, but B, just give us a follow just for a little bit. We're so close to 64,000, which is another doubling. We'll be doing something to celebrate, so thank you. And in other news, Snowflake is buying crunchy data for $250 million. This is from the Wall Street Journal. The cloud data company aims to attract customers who want to build their own artificial intelligence
agents. Let's give it up
agents.
for a base hit for these investors.
Yes,
that,
250.
It probably didn't return the investors' fund entirely, but it's still a fantastic outcome. Hopefully for the team.
And so we got it. We have to do like a database day or get start talking to some of these database folks because Snowflake, Databricks, Palantir, they're all making serious moves in this space, and they're all kind of moving to different layers of the stack. Like Databricks is now more of this like data lake, like data unification layer, and then Palantir sits on top as like the ontology layer, actually understanding how all of the different data interacts. And so they're kind of playing nice, and Snowflake and Palantir used to be kind of comped directly to each other, but they've diverged in the public markets. But still, Snowflake's like a fantastic and like incredible story of an incubation at Sutter Hill Ventures that went massive and IPO'd and went into the tens of billions of dollars. Databricks is also up there in the tens of billions of dollars. A lot of people are waiting for them to IPO. And so it's a very interesting dynamic. Now, Databricks bought Neon, a similar database startup, in a deal valued for about $1 billion. Now Snowflake is buying Crunchy Data.
Great name.
Yeah, Crunchy Data. The naming schemes in like enterprise SaaS, like deep down in the are just wild and entertaining. Like Datadog remains one of my favorite startup names of all time.
I mean,
it's so funny.
Datadog. I mean, you have. Last YC demo day, we met the founder building Pig.
Pig was great too. We got to check in on Pig.
We got to check in on Pig. I don't exactly remember what they do, but I remember the name.
Yeah. It'll only be a matter of time until we see like
I'm now searching Pig AI.
Pig.
And luckily, I was able to find it. Pig.dev.
There we go.
An API to launch and automate Windows desktops.
Let's hear it for Pig.
Pig.
Just a great name.
I think, if Pig is successful, it will inspire a generation of companies named after animals.
Yeah.
Monkey, goose, horse,
yeah.
Horse.ai.
We don't have any animal name companies. Although we do want animals to start sleeping on 8 sleeps.
Yep.
That's something we're pushing for. We think animal testing is going to make a big comeback in the mattress market. 8 sleeps are so comfortable. We're going to have, your dog should be sleeping on 8 sleep. How'd you sleep last night? I think I had a rough night. I was up at 5 on the grind. Let's see.
I actually didn't get the hours in.
You didn't get the hours in?
I slept for 6 hours and 50
minutes.
I got an
80.
I got an 84.
Oh, you smoked me again. Just like, so close. I got 6.5. But then,
so close, but so far.
Yeah, it happens. It happens to the best of us. Anyway.
It's pretty funny. My my son came in our room at probably 2 a.m. I was half asleep.
Yeah.
But then he just slept perpendicular to us.
Yeah.
So
that's exactly
he was
what you
getting
want.
2 different temperatures. Like half his body was getting, my wife's temperature, half the other, which had to have been a funny, just weird experience. But he was sleeping well. He was sound asleep when I left.
Yeah. I remember showing my son the 8 sleep app,
and I just had
how you can see like the left side and the right side and like what the temperatures are.
Yeah.
And he was like, and me for the center. And we're like, no,
they don't make that.
They don't make that yet. And
also, go back in your
room.
I had to pull up startups named after animals.
Okay.
Because there are actually a few: Mailchimp, HostGator,
Mailchimp,
MuleSoft,
PostHog. PostHog is like pig. It's the same thing, a hog and a pig. PostHog is one of the greatest names ever.
Post, yeah, I mean it's an iconic.
It's like postmodern. Like post-hog, like we are post-hog. We are now in domesticated hogs, which are pigs. So pig, in many ways, is the post-hog.
Yeah.
I don't even know if they do the same thing.
Post-hog. TaskRabbit, SurveyMonkey, Hippo Insurance.
It was a big
Zebra.
Thing. Yeah.
Tractive.
Okay,
now we're going.
Now we're hallucinating.
We're hallucinating. Fat Llama, a peer-to-peer rental platform.
Let's go. Fat Llama is a great name.
Lunch Badger, a cloud services.
Lunch Badger? These are hallucinated. This is not real.
No,
it's real.
It's in a Crunchbase.
Let's go.
I mean, if it's in Crunchbase,
well, is it in Crunchy
but
Data?
But the thing that stands out about Pig is that it doesn't add anything before or after.
No,
it's just Pig.
No. It's like Ramp.
Yeah.
Or like Vanta, automate compliance, manage risk, prove trust continuously. Vanta's trust management platform takes the manual work out of your security and compliance process and replaces it with continuous automation, whether you're pursuing your first framework or managing a complex program. Back to Crunchy Data. Crunchy Data has roughly 100 employees, scaled pretty quickly. They'll join the company once the deal closes, which is expected to close in the next couple of weeks. Crunchy Data will be part of an offering called Snowflake Postgres. The vision here is that Snowflake Postgres will simplify how developers build, deploy, and scale agents and apps. Very relevant to that Microsoft story we were talking about earlier. With that in mind, it was important to acquire a company that was not just engineering and quick experimentation. Crunchy Data is a cloud-based database provider that helps large businesses and government agencies use Postgres without needing to manage infrastructure themselves. I've used Postgres before. There are some
It's crazy.
I
didn't realize Crunchy Data was founded in 2012.
Wow. Overnight success.
Overnight success.
You love to see it. Congrats on the $250 million sale. How much did they raise, I wonder?
I'll find out.
There's a couple other deals. Snowflake offers a platform for storing, organizing, and analyzing data across multiple cloud providers, including AWS, Azure, and Google Cloud. The company, which went public in 2020, grew rapidly during the pandemic as more companies migrated their data to cloud storage from on-premise data warehouses, which is it's crazy that we're still in like the cloud migration era from on-prem data warehouses. This is like cloud data has existed for a decade and still happening. And if the AI rollout is any similar, or if it tracks similarly, it's like we could be talking about agents for the next decade and just continually rolling these products out in a very, very slow takeoff scenario. But
Crunchy Data only raised $14 million.
Wow, there we go.
So, very efficient.
Very efficient. Well, speaking of other efficient businesses, there's a story from our friend Chris Best in The Information. He says Apple's App Store changes, quote, have been fantastic. And this is why I wanted to highlight the efficiency. He said Substack was accidentally cash flow positive in the first quarter of this year. Fantastic. Growth has been translated to revenue. Best said the company, which was founded in 2017, was accidentally cash flow positive during the first quarter of 2025. That said, Substack is not focused on profitability right now, he said, as it hopes to continue investing in growth. Said that Substack apps users are heavily in the U.S., where Apple has been ordered by federal court in Northern California to allow app owners to offer users alternative payment mechanisms, allowing apps to bypass Apple's 15 to 30% fee for in-app purchases.
So, had Apple been taking?
Yes, if you went in the app and then you subscribed to a Substack and you use the in-app payments flow, they would take 30% of that on an ongoing basis.
I didn't even know that was possible. I've never signed up for Substack in the app.
Yep. And
that's crazy because
this I mean, it's a digital product, right? And so it is.
Well, it's interesting because Audible has found a way to get around this by
credits and stuff.
The credit system, which is just so annoying.
Yeah, I think that's a bigger negotiation because it's Amazon.
Yeah.
And I think Apple had more leverage over Substack, but we should have Chris back on the show and ask about how it actually works. But yeah, I mean, I feel like most Substack users would be actually fine going through a web flow.
Yeah, it's
not as much of like an impulse purchase. You really, you have a relationship with the Substacker that you're subscribing to. You kind of understand, and it's pretty easy to message. I feel like the average Substack user probably understands a little bit more about the Apple App Store tax.
Desktop respecters.
Exactly.
There's a lot of corporate athletes.
Emails. Corporate athletes.
People that are sitting in front of their computer all day long.
Yep.
And what better place to buy things than the computer? Buying things on the computer is really historically and still today just a fantastic experience.
It's fantastic, especially when you have your sales tax automated with Numeral.
That's right.
Go to Numeral HQ, put your sales tax on autopilot. Spend less than 5 minutes per month on sales tax compliance. You may be able to avoid the Apple tax, but you will not be able to
not this one.
Avoid
ahead of it.
state sales tax on software and consumer goods.
Sales tax AGI.
Yes. Anyway, Substack now has more than 50 creators who are making millions of dollars per year on the platform. Best said the platform overall has more than 5 million paid subscribers. So
yeah, Substack is such
$120 million. I didn't realize they raised so much, but that's great that they're profitable.
Yeah. So I mean, I think this is such a great story where this is a business that raised ahead of where they were.
Sure.
And then a lot of people wrote them off because they were like, wait, this is just a media business with a take rate and all this stuff. And what Chris has been able to do over the past year, when we had him on the show, I was kind of asking, has it felt like Substack has broken through really into culture?
Yep.
Becoming like a real brand itself outside of Twitter, right? Because they basically got Elon came for them hard,
totally,
and that was somewhat warranted because they launched a competitive product.
I thought the competitive product happened as a response to the link ban. I thought that was the sequence of events. It was links getting deprioritized somewhat, and then Substack launching a post competitor. Which I don't even know if I agree that was the right move. I haven't really played with that product.
Well, it seems kind of obvious that X was going to ban links.
Yep.
Either way.
Yeah.
That hurt Substack.
Yeah.
It hurt the writers on Substack.
Sure.
And was the right decision for X.
Yeah.
But yeah. So there was a link suppression, and then
Substack launched.
Hamish, one of the co-founders, called Elon Musk a propagandist with more conflicts of interest than El Chapo.
Spicy.
But ultimately, interesting. I never picked this up.
What?
Apparently, Musk had made some type of proposal to buy Substack in 2023.
Yep, but probably
after that they restricted links.
Stack. Yep.
And
Twitter formerly had bought
so I think you're right.
Another publishing platform.
Yeah.
I don't remember the name, but they rolled that
in,
and then I think they closed it down. And now you just have the ability to write pretty long posts. You can post articles, X articles, directly on X. And I think that it's weird because we have yet to see, we are an example of a media business or a show that just said, we will play the game by Elon's rules on X. So we don't think about links at all. We think about what are the products that X loves: text posts, memes, images, video uploads, live streams, and we do those very, very well. And that's what we focus on. And we don't. So we're not in tension. We're leaning into what the platform loves. We should actually consider doing articles on X. The question is, what would it look like if you tried to build a Substack-like business? You're just a writer and your output is articles, and you use X's subscription tools and the articles feed to have that experience of one free article a week and then one paid a week, and you try and build up the book of subscription business on your X account. I've seen some people that have subscriptions turned on. I think I actually technically have subscriptions turned on. I think only Gary Tan is like the one who subscribes to me. Shout out Gary Tan.
Let's
Thank
give it
you.
up for Gary.
he just like throws me a couple.
Ultimately, the thing what's interesting about Substack is they were, effectively benefited from ZERP in terms of accessing capital, and people started to write them off because I think at times their growth was not best in class. They were just sort of chugging along, and if he had originally had this idea of, hey, we're going to build this publishing platform that's going to allow independent, citizen journalism and writing to flourish, and then we're going to launch this sort of social network with streaming and all this stuff, that at certain times would have been hard to believe, but they actually have executed that to a T. And now when you go on Substack, it does feel like a social network, based on, email as a sort of backbone. So I'm excited to follow their progress more and eventually get really set up on Substack ourselves.
Yeah. So next up, we have Augustus Doricko coming in. There's an article in Semaphore today. China boosts use of cloud seeding to combat droughts. And we wanted to have him come in and break it down for us. The headline is, China stepped up cloud seeding in the face of severe drought. The country's grain-growing regions in the north have been parched for months, leading to concerns over the harvest. Though some scientists are skeptical over cloud seeding's effectiveness and environmental impact, several countries have begun deploying it. China is already the world's leading user of weather modification, firing chemical compounds into clouds to spark precipitation, and has conducted 20% more than by this time last year, apparently causing a 1/3 increase in rainfall. That seems pretty significant. So let's bring in Augustus Doricko and have him break it down for us. How you doing, Augustus? Good to hear from you. I don't know. That sounds like a cruise ship or something.
Yeah. Welcome. That's the sound that's in Augustus' wake. Whenever he goes anywhere. It's great to have you.
Anyway. Yeah, thanks, man. That and size gongs. Update soon.
Wait, okay. You got to listen to this one.
Journalists on the horizon. Stand by.
Great. Nice. Who was the guy that was responsible for posting the try to stay focused on the mission GIF a while back? When I got that text, I got like a hard eyes text about like, oh, I liked your appearance on TBPN. Good social media intern there.
Yeah.
But
the team's growing over here. We got a good crew coming together. There's vibe coding happening over in that part of the studio. There's a lot of production stuff going on. It's been a fun time.
Sweet. So
break it down.
I'm here to ring the alarm bell. Totally transparently, there are really big problems on the horizon, both with China's domestic weather modification program and then their international one. The article that you read or that you're referencing talks about how China is actively retrofitting their Wing-Long 2s, right? Talk about like nominative determinism, cool name for a drone. But it is the essentially Chinese equivalent of the MQ-9 Reaper. And they're using it for cloud seeding and weather modification operations all across the country. A lot of that is to fill up the snowpack in Tibet and then use that as a natural water tower for runoff for all of their urban, industrial, agricultural, and environmental assets in China. So that unto itself is insane. To recontextualize people, the Chinese Meteorological Administration has about a $300 million budget for weather modification. They have 38,000 employees exclusively working on weather modification, and they have 2 universities that offer bachelor's degrees in weather engineering, not meteorology, not atmospheric science, specifically engineering the weather. So they are driving extraordinarily hard on this domestically, just for their own water supply, just to green deserts, just to keep their cities and industry humming. The problem is the international implications of this, right? We are in and like I critique people all the time for saber rattling with China needlessly, but the Wing-Long 2 has been sold and is being operated in countries across the world, namely Saudi Arabia and Egypt, for defense applications, right? So that has its problems for defense, but also for weather modification. The CMA has explicitly said they want to export cloud seeding as a means of soft power to control water supply and weather across the world. They already collaborate very closely with the Thai Royal Rainmaking Department, and they can easily retrofit these drones that they've sold for defense applications.
The Royal Rainmaking Department.
Wow.
Great name.
Great name. But they can easily retrofit these drones for weather mod as well across the world. And then not only control the shipping and receiving and these ports, not just the energy infrastructure, nice, but also the water supply and weather. And President Lyndon B. Johnson said, whoever controls the weather controls the world. And right now we're trending towards a world where China controls the weather and subsequently the world. And it's really Rainmaker Technology Corporation representing the United States against the CMA. So President Donald Trump, if you can hear us, Secretary Rubio, if you can hear us, the State Department should be involved in this soft power conflict on weather modification internationally.
How are you thinking about the current pitch for weather modification? Because it feels like this news out of China has a few different hooks, as well as agriculture and drinking water. Much of China is reliant on hydropower for electricity. Sichuan in the southwest gets 80% of its power from dams, meaning that droughts can lead to electricity shortages. I mean, I know we have the Hoover Dam, but is hydroelectric power important in America? Obviously, power is top of mind for everyone, but in America, it feels like the narrative has shifted to nuclear and solar. But is there a world where we could be getting more out of our existing hydroelectric assets, and there's maybe a narrative there or not?
100%, right? Okay. Nuclear is awesome, and I'm super excited for Valor Atomics to turn 1,000 reactors online in their gigasites and produce the world's energy. But it's going to take at least a year for that to start, and it'll probably take years longer still until that's our main form of stable baseload. Solar is great, but we have nighttime still, and reflect orbital hasn't solved for that problem. So we need stable baseload, and we need clean baseload. And hydroelectric power across hundreds of dams in the American West produces hundreds of gigawatt hours, and we can refill our own dams to increase more stable, clean baseload with cloud seeding. Where these dams are drying up right now, we can increase supply. 80% of you mentioned Sichuan, 80% of Colombia's power comes from hydroelectric as well. And they're going through a drought right now. And so they have rolling blackouts because there's not enough power there. Both domestically for our own energy production, we could use cloud seeding to produce more hydroelectric. And then internationally, again, as a means of collaborating with other countries, let's call it, and ensuring that like they have American interests in mind, we can produce more water and hydro for them.
Can you talk about the Chinese approach to cloud seeding versus what you're doing in the American approach? I feel like a lot of times when we see a competitive dynamic emerge between China and America, there's only a small tweak between the way Instagram Reels are served versus TikTok, or DJI drones versus GoPros. It's usually just the scale and efficiency and reliability of Chinese technology, but there isn't usually that much of a shift in the underlying strategy. Are they using the same chemicals? Do you think we should be using different chemicals from their mix? Are they using different drones, or are they shelling this stuff into the atmosphere with howitzers? Like, is there anything that we can learn that might not be IP protected that we could safely port back? Is there anything that we should change based on what we're hearing from over there?
China is throwing the kitchen sink at weather modification research. So they're doing drone-based aerial cloud seeding. They're doing ground generator-based cloud seeding. They're doing acoustic cloud seeding research, meaning they have these huge 130 decibel speaker systems where they just blast it at clouds. They put them all in Tibet. So even though it's like destroying the ears of Tibetan villagers, they're trying to shake water out of the clouds. So that they have a bunch of other photonic stuff. They're doing a ton of research, but really the big and important aspect of this is their sophisticated military retrofit of drones for long endurance missions, their radar research for detecting phase change in cloud. And then lastly, I think the thing that they have like the most serious edge on the United States and anybody else in the world in is their ice nucleation agent and their particulate. They're doing a bunch of nanoparticle design, so super small scale particle coating. Is titanium dioxide on top of these salt crystals, among other things, that are way more efficient at nucleating ice and subsequently creating snow or condensing stuff in cloud. Rainmaker's doing research into that right now, but that's where China far and away has the biggest lead on the nanoparticles that they're using.
How about your challenges at home with various states and regulators? What's the update there?
So 31 states proposed legislation to ban all forms of weather modification this year. Almost all of them dropped that legislation because one...
Because of you? Was it? Did you?
We did. Me and the Rainmaker team did a lot of work around state capitals. I've got like a regular barbershop in Tallahassee and a few other state capitals to tune the mullet up before I testify. But the one state that did ban it was Florida. Florida made weather modification a class 2 felony. So if I were to work there, I'd go to prison for 5 years.
Wow.
And that, I think, unto itself is not the huge problem. Fine, sure, you're depriving Floridian cattle ranchers and orchards from having as much water as they want, and they do have wildfires and droughts, so it hurts the state of Florida. But the real problem is the canary in the coal mine in terms of American political sentiment, particularly Republican political sentiment, right? There's this whole conversation around the tech right and who is pro-innovation and who's not. Is the Trump administration pro-innovation? Seems so for the most part, but unless we have clear federal regulation on weather modification and a public stance in favor of this, then we're going to lose control of the weather to China.
Yeah. What about desalination? So it's something that we were doing in America. We kind of fell off. It feels like the nuclear story, and it just feels like I'm going to hear a story in the next few years of like, oh yeah, China just figured it out. And now they have like a bunch of desalination plants and we're behind on that too. Are you tracking it at all?
So desalination is largely held up by the California Coastal Commission. And then like HOAs basically that block the construction of desal. An interesting stat that
because it smells bad.
No, just because it looks ugly.
Okay.
Desal smells fine. It's just like a bit. Well, it looks. It looks
industrial, right?
It looks like a big, beautiful oil refinery, which I happen to be a fan of personally. But folks in Newport Beach less so. Desal is great, and if we come up with some really sophisticated new reverse osmosis membranes or catalytic desalination methods with good electrical engineering, we can make it more efficient. But the problem with desal still is that we have to move that water from the coasts. Like it's a non-starter for Nevada or Colorado or Utah to get desalinated water. What you can do though is cloud seed, obviously, right? You can produce water anywhere where there are clouds with our tech.
Yeah, I remember Blake Masters was saying when he was running in Arizona, he was saying like the future of California is nuclear powered desal, and then we need to reroute the Colorado River to hydrate the inner states. Is there a world where you could build? I mean, you mentioned it looks like an oil and gas refinery. Could you build an offshore oil rig essentially, or is it just like it's not economically dense enough? Water is not the same as oil, so you're not going to be able to pay to put it on a truck and then bring it in. It just doesn't make sense to do it that way.
Yeah, exactly.
It must flow.
I was talking to some commodities traders the other day, and I was trying to like come up with some crazy derivatives for water.
But not like quite there yet.
It's cents for a barrel, right? And it's almost as heavy as oil. So you can't convey this. 13% of all of the electricity in California is used just moving water around.
What? That's crazy.
Wow.
Yeah, like the Central Valley exists just because we pump all of that stuff from the Sacramento Delta and American River down into the valley and elsewhere. Like there's this huge unknown problem, which is like, because we don't have enough water, we have to dedicate so much of our energy resources just to moving it around where we could just be producing it in the Sierras. And that's what Rainmaker's doing.
Interesting. Anything else you're tracking from China?
So I guess one thing that I will say in terms of like this soft conflict is we had a customer meeting in the Middle East, and a day before we had the scheduled meeting, they said, "Hey, sorry, we have to go to a last minute trip to China to go talk about the Winglong 2." So we're trying to qualify Rainmaker's vehicles in the Middle East right now, so that we are clearly at parity with their system capabilities and then can be selected for the Chinese. But
the challenge, if you look at the precedent for sort of state-backed companies out of China, they're willing to sell at a loss for years. And so I have no insight into whether they would try to attempt that in cloud seeding, but it wouldn't exactly be surprising, which I'm sure is a competitive dynamic that you're thinking about.
Every single international office that we go into to talk about our work, we see a stack this high of purchase orders from China, and then one that's like 2 pages thin that's from American companies. So yeah, it's absolutely a problem.
Wow.
Part of this article highlights this idea that grain growing regions in China have been parched this month for 4 months. Are we in a particular like global drought? Is this unique to China? Are we experiencing drought in America? Like, what is the state of drought generally? You mentioned that there are different pockets around the globe, but is this a particularly bad year? Are the trend lines bad overall? Or, I mean, we saw the fires and that it felt very visceral in California and Los Angeles, but you never really know when you zoom out where we are on the trend line.
So we had out of distribution high amounts of precipitation this past year in California and in America. Yeah. And even still, we had the wildfires, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
The thing that I think is a good reference point is the California Department of Natural Resources water supply strategy. Mm-hmm. They explicitly plan for 500,000 to 1 million acres of farmland in the Central Valley to turn into desert in the next 5 years, just because there's not enough water. So even when we have boom years and the reservoirs are all full and there's tons of snowpack and everybody gets to go skiing in Tahoe, there's not enough water for current demand. And that's in part just because population is growing, right? Like, we built the Central Valley Water Project to turn the Central Valley from a desert and swamp into the most productive agricultural region in the world. And we wouldn't have the US population that we do now if it weren't for that water project. And so we just need to produce more if we want to maintain agricultural and economic growth.
That makes a ton of sense. Well, good luck out there. We hope you can strike some big deals on the back of this news. We got to be competitive.
Thank you for fighting on America's behalf.
We'll talk to you soon.
Come back soon.
Later.
Cheers.
See ya. Bye. Next up, we have Brad from Cobot coming in the studio talking about collaborative robots. I'm very interested to talk about the sim to real gap, which we covered yesterday. We will welcome Brad to the studio. How are you doing? Welcome to the show. Thank you for joining. What's new? Oh, fantastic outfit.
There we go.
Welcome to the show. Amazing. Wow. Looking great. What's the occasion? First, introduce yourself, please, but explain why the fantastic outfit today.
Are you doing real work?
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah. Hi, I'm Brad Porter. I'm founder and CEO of Collaborative Robotics. This is how you tell whether a robotic company is really in production or in the field, if they're wearing their safety vests. And I was at our deployment with Maersk yesterday, and so had this handy and thought
there we go.
I'd bring it out for you guys.
Yeah, so I mean, to the degree that you can talk about it, what exactly are you doing for Maersk? That sounds like important work.
Yeah, we're helping them in transload operations, in unloading ocean freight containers and loading out onto tractor trailers. They load carts, industrial carts, full of kind of up to 1,500 pounds worth of generally boxes of product for retailers. And then we help with moving the carts, because moving those heavy carts around all day long is pretty taxing work. So and we've got,
you said 1,500 pounds. How big is one of those boxes? I'm familiar with like a 55-gallon drum. I'm familiar with like a pallet of goods that you might see in an Amazon warehouse. How big are we talking?
Yeah, so think of this as the types of boxes and that would flow to a retailer, right?
Sure.
To a big box retailer.
Sure.
And so they're unloading those from ocean containers onto carts that are about 3.5 foot wide by about 6.5 foot long. And so they just load up as many as they can on the cart and then take it to, usually these are getting dispatched out to big box stores. And so, there might be 6 tractor trailers that are getting loaded up to go to 6 different stores in a region. So we're working in the Sumner, Washington area, cool. So out of Seattle port, and helping basically get distribution out to Pacific Northwest.
Can you talk about some of the differences about unloading at a port versus what Amazon's Kiva Systems does within the warehouse, and some of the different challenges that you face versus what Kiva is doing? I imagine that there's some learnings that cross over, right?
Yeah. So the way you can think about logistics is there's inbound flow, products coming from manufacturers around the world, a lot of it coming from China, and then that ends up in some distribution warehouse ready for people to buy. So it might end up in your local big box retailer. You can just go and buy a fan off the shelf, or it ends up in an Amazon warehouse, an Amazon fulfillment center. So the inbound side of that is to unload the ocean containers and then bring it to some place where it's being stored, or bring it to a retail store or to an Amazon fulfillment center. And then an Amazon fulfillment center, that Kiva network, or now Amazon Robotics, what they call kind of the Hercules drives, is their storage array. So Amazon will have multiple mezzanine decks of those Kiva pods full of all kinds of things that you might buy from Amazon. Literally can have a million different SKUs in a building. And then when you order it, almost immediately the system knows where it has lots of those, and they're stowed across Amazon's network. It quickly calculates where's the most optimal place to deliver this to you, and then a robot goes and gets that shelf and brings it to a picker, brings it to someone who pulls it out of those shelves, puts it into a tote, and then those totes get routed to a pack station, gets packed, thrown, and then it gets sorted to a truck, and then usually, either to FedEx or UPS or Amazon's delivery network, or to USPS. Amazon can kind of deliver into any of those outbound delivery networks. And so 3 phases: coming in from the manufacturers, stored and ready to be bought, and then shipped to you.
Where are we at in the kind of AI journey of these collaborative robots? I imagine that there's tons of work that can be done with just hard-coded business logic, drive 2 feet forward, take a left, and it kind of just is almost like a conveyor belt on independent wheels, versus the far future where the robot has a brain and is just making completely independent decisions and decides where it goes and problem solves and reasons, and we're on the cusp of that. But I imagine that there's a journey that we're going through, and so walk me through where we are in terms of that journey.
Yeah, so we've made a lot of progress from the days where you just follow the tape line on the floor. Yep. Right. Now robots can generally sense and perceive and navigate commercial environments autonomously quite well. Usually, at human walking speeds, maybe a little faster, but the kind of self-driving problem is reasonably well solved in commercial spaces at those type of speeds. And that's generally done with a LiDAR,
really?
And maybe, stereo depth cameras. Yeah. And so, LiDAR-based SLAM is how it localizes, and then navigation and planning. And that can be done in a way where it can detect humans, obstacles, navigate around things. And that's the capability our robot has. And it can do that in hospitals, in ultimately airport stadiums, in and around people quite safely. That technology works. What's coming now is you can talk to robots, and the robots will make the high level plan and instruct that. Where we need to get to is what we can do with our hands, right? Where I would open up your AirPod case and pull out. It's a very complicated set of motions that we do without thinking about it. We don't quite have that capability yet.
Got it. Talk to me about the LiDAR supply chain and cost structure in your business. It's been a controversial debate point for a long time in autonomous vehicles, but if the economic model works, it feels like it's just pure value add. Is the cost of LiDAR getting lower? Are you thinking about solid state LiDAR coming down the pipe, or is it already available? Are you banking on a reduction in LiDAR costs over the long term, or does your business model, just by nature of how much value you're adding, you're fine paying $50K or something like that, if that's the number? I don't know.
Yeah, LiDARs are in the kind of, they used to be $50K. They're in the kind of $3,000 to $6,000 range right now.
Yeah.
And so you're right. You do have to add enough value. You're not going to put that on your Roomba, right? But you can put that on an industrial robot and get a payback. Obviously, want to keep seeing those costs continue to come down, but it's not a prohibitive element for a lot of the work that needs to get done out there.
Can you talk about form factors broadly and what guided your thinking towards the Proxie, the initial product, and other products in the suite? Feels like you guys distinctly chose not to do humanoids, even though I'm sure various VCs thought, hey, have you guys thought about doing humanoids?
Have you seen this demo? Have you seen this viral video from Boston Dynamics?
Yeah. So I'm curious, kind of the decision making that went into the current and pending form factors.
Yeah, so I mean, as much as like the humanoid hype seems to have been peaked in the last, 12, 18 months, I think Elon did a lot to kind of fan that. Humanoid robots have been around for quite a while. Agility Systems has been, Aptronic, these guys have been at it for a while. And so when I was leading robotics for Amazon, we studied deeply humanoids. In 2018, I went through my like hype phase on humanoids in 2018. I got really excited about them. What agility was showing at the time and legged mobility looked like it could actually work, and it does. And so I had my team at Amazon do a full analysis of everything we weren't going to automate in another way where a humanoid could help. And I remember reviewing this paper. There were 40 different use cases where a humanoid could be great, right? And then we looked at all 40 use cases. And we said, actually, to solve these problems, we don't need a humanoid. And in fact, a humanoid is kind of too complicated. You really want wheels. You kind of want to move more than 3.5 miles an hour.
And is the number of motors a potential issue too, from a degradation standpoint? It's like, we've talked to other robotics founders that say, I'm using, robotic arms in my facility, and we already have to replace those motors all the time. And then a humanoid might have an order of magnitude more and actually be less productive than some type of robotic arm.
So the number of motors really does drive the overall cost. It also drives the complexity of the controls, right? And so you get into a world where you need AI-driven controls. But the real problem that people don't talk about very much with humanoids is getting strength out of rotational motion is very hard. Right? You're effectively, because you're just doing a short throw, you don't have the kind of momentum flywheel effect as you get the torques rolling on your electric vehicle, right? You're moving through very short distances. So all the power is basically your electric magnet and then your rare earth magnets. And so you end up needing bigger and bigger motors to get that kind of power. And then you want to wind them with the absolute highest density you can. And so they end up, and then you want to run them at almost the peak current that you can to get the most strength. So the problem is humanoid robots either have to put this way big motor that doesn't look right in the shoulder, but what they're typically doing is they're hand winding the motors, they're pushing the current to the max, and even then they're getting maybe 60% the strength of humans, and they burn those motors out. So the motors are very expensive, and they burn them out very quickly, and they're still not as strong as a human. And so we need some breakthrough. The pneumatic, Boston Dynamics had that Atlas robot that could do backflips and everything. Pneumatic is 10x the power of an electric, right? But you can't really make that system reliable in production.
So do you think there are more consumer use cases for the humanoid form factor, maybe around the home? How do you think about applications outside of industrials?
I've struggled to find someone mentioned one to me the other day that seemed great, which is walking your dog. I think humanoids walking the dog would be quite interesting, quite cool. I suppose you could have a quadruped.
Man's best friend's best friend.
Too.
Yeah.
But otherwise, I am not bullish. I do think there's some cool robots recently that are more kind of friendly. Look like they're kind of playing a game with a kid. I think kind of the emotional companion idea is quite interesting. But
yeah, getting the strength is tough. I mean, even just thinking about the human arm, like the force that's generated from the human arm is from like the bicep muscle, which is much bigger than the actual joint. And so if you put a motor on that joint, you're not
we need
using
a humanoid
all this.
with just absolute cannons.
There is a humanoid company that's trying to create the muscle fibers and pull that, and that sounds like some of the pneumatic projects, and maybe it'll be a hybrid. In terms of training and AI development, there's been this talk about the sim to real gap. I don't know how closely you've been tracking this, but obviously generating data for robotics has been very difficult. But now there's this new paper that SemiAnalysis was talking about yesterday, all about training and simulation. Basically, Unreal Engine, you build the robot virtually, you have it walk around, learn as much as it can in thousands of years of artificial data. Then there's going to be a gap between what it experiences in simulation and reality. And so what you do is you take what it's learned in simulation and you run that on a robot in a cage, basically wired up with a power cable so that it can run forever. And it tries to do the moves that it learned in simulation. It messes it up, but then that generates more data that feeds back in. Does that seem like, power generation, all the mechanical issues aside, does that seem like an interesting path to go down for actually solving the algorithmic and like the AI piece of understanding these, how these robots will actually choose what motors to move at what times?
And do you have any experience generating data? Just kidding. I'm just kidding. Former CTO of Smol.ai, for anyone listening that's not familiar.
No, that's so the challenge in robotics first is how do you get, it's the same in large language. Well, what's the pre-training phase, right? Mm-hmm. How do we get some base level in pre-training in large language models? It's to kind of understand how words are likely to follow each other, mm-hmm. right? Just statistically. So motor actions, what's likely to cause the arm to move forward and things like that. But the hard part in any AI system are the edge cases at the end when you're interfacing with the real world, right? Mm-hmm. And fortunately, we have all this large language model data. We have all this data from the internet to give us reference examples of what the real world of language looks like, right? And so we refine on that. And then we use human preference to refine even further. And that's how we get, ChatGPT. In the robotics world, data from simulation, data from multiple robots, data from teleoperation, all of these are kind of techniques people are using to feed some data into, what's kind of the pre-trained base model that gets some statistical correlation. But when it comes to learning the edge cases, right? Mm-hmm. When it comes to, hey, that doorknob is higher than this other doorknob, or the doorknob doesn't, turns upward instead of downward. You and I actually self-play to figure that out. We come up to a doorknob that doesn't. It's funny, we have a door at Cobot that you can either push the handlebar or there's a handle. Well, everyone tries to push the handle, and then the door doesn't open, and you have to push the. And so humans get confused too, and we do this kind of refined self-play. And I think right now we're very much focused on the pre-training phase. Just how do we get enough data to have something that like roughly moves its hand toward the door?
Sure. To
really solve this problem, though, we've got to learn how to self-play in the real world, like you or I do, because there's all kinds of novel stuff we're going to run into solving real problems.
Well, good luck with that. It sounds like an easy task, but I'm sure you're up to the task. And it's been fantastic talking to you.
Yeah, this has been super insightful.
It's such an exciting industry because it's really just like we're still just on the early part of the S curve. And there's going to be fantastic advancements. So good luck.
The future is going to be amazing. Awesome. Thank you, guys.
Appreciate you coming on. We'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, Brad.
Thanks so much. Talk to you soon. Next up, we have Kian from Nucleus coming on with a big announcement. Something like 10 years in the making, close to it, maybe 7 years. We'll bring Kian in. Let's play some soundboard. How you doing? Welcome to the show. That's a great intro.
The tweets are flying. Oh
tweets
my God, you guys seeing this?
Yes.
You seeing this? Seeing this?
Break it down for us. Explain what's happening.
There's nothing like a launch day.
I'm trying to figure out, guys, is it Gattaca or is it Theranos? Because people can't make up their mind.
Oh yeah, we're gonna find out.
They're trying to figure it out. They're trying to figure out what's going on. Let's give some context to the audience. Nucleus has launched Nucleus Embryo, the world's first genetic optimization software. Basically, parents can give their children the best start in life. They can pick their embryo based off of physical characteristics like eye color, IQ. They can go to disease risk like cancers or heart disease. Basically, we really believe parents can get all the information that exists about their embryos, and they can pick however they want. For me personally, it's been 10 years in the making. The journalist actually covered it today in the Wall Street Journal. Was a journalist that covered my gene editing in a warehouse in Brooklyn 10 years ago.
Yes,
wow.
Overnight success.
So it's a long time in genetics.
Yeah, so break down the state of the art, because like embryo screening exists. I think most parents in America, at least if they have the means, do some sort of screening while the embryo is growing. Is this purely for IVF? Is this just going a layer deeper? And then I want to talk about the regulatory and FDA component as well.
Yeah, let's talk about it. So basically, if you go to an IVF clinic today, you're a couple. The vast majority of clinics. The first thing to actually understand is that the IVF process is principally controlled today by clinicians or doctors. Honestly, couples don't have as much liberty in our perspective as they should. It's their baby, it's their embryos. They should have the right to that information, and they should be able to pick off any vertical. However, today in the clinic, what generally happens is people test embryos for very rare and severe genetic conditions. For example, like a chromosomal abnormality, like Down syndrome, for example, or even a condition like cystic fibrosis or Tay-Sachs or PKU, right? These are conditions that are very rare, that maybe someone might have a carrier for cystic fibrosis, but again, it's pretty rare. Then there are conditions that we've all heard about, things like breast cancer, things like coronary artery disease, the things that actually kill the vast majority of people today, right? Chronic conditions kill the vast majority of people today. Those conditions are just not tested for in the clinic, even though we have very good science actually that can make those predictions. How do we know this as a DNA company? Well, that's what we do, right? We build models that predict disease, and the way you test those models is in adults. So we go from adults to embryos is actually because we can basically well validate these models to show that they work in both the embryonic context and in the adult context. And so what we're really doing is we're going from, okay, instead of just looking for really severe like Down syndrome or cystic fibrosis, why not do breast cancer? Why not do heart disease? Why not do colorectal cancer, right? Why not do schizophrenia? Why do Parkinson's? But then why stop there? And this is really the important thing, because ultimately, if you think about diseases and traits, the extreme version of any a trait is actually a disease, right? Height is a great example of this. One extreme end is like, John, for example, he's like Marfan syndrome almost. Then the other end is like me, dwarfism, right? It's like diseases on both ends, okay? So IQ is another example of this. One end is like, autism. The other end, it can actually be some sort of, a cognitive basically challenge that people have. And so when you think about it, we start realizing that people have drawn a line in the sand saying you can get, rare diseases, you can't get common diseases, but then they really said you can't get any traits like height, even though the best predictor we have today actually in the world, the best polygenic predictor is for height. So as a company, we've kind of completely reimagined this and said, wait a second, what's going on here? You should have access to the entire stack. Rare diseases, we do. Cystic fibrosis, common diseases like breast cancer, and also traits all the way up to something like IQ.
Yeah, so I mean, that test, are you just giving people the data? Because I imagine that once you get into particular recommendations, that's more of what I would expect a licensed doctor to need to do.
Well, yeah, my sense is that you can allow people to get the data from their doctor and then feed it into Nucleus. Is that correct?
So that is correct. And actually, we have there was like 10 announcements today. You know how we do it. We like to do 10 announcements in one day. We are actually very, very excited to announce a huge partnership with Genomic Prediction. So Genomic Prediction is actually the oldest embryo testing company that exists. They've done genome-wide testing embryos for almost a decade at this point. And I think they've done over 120,000 couples for PGTA, which is a specific kind of test. And so we're actually partnering with them. So we make it very easy for Genomic Prediction customers to request their files and actually port it over to Nucleus. But really, this isn't just for Genomic Prediction customers. Anyone who's undergoing IVF can go to their clinic and say, I want my embryos data. You can take that data, you can upload it to Nucleus, and then all of a sudden, the application layer of DNA makes this technology universally universally accessible.
Now, how much of the benefit is actual algorithmic analysis, bringing in other data points to contextualize the data versus just better UI and better hydration of existing text? Because we had a friend on the show who was talking about getting some medical results from a doctor. The doctor's office was closed. It took 2 days until the doctor was going to be able to interpret the results. He was able to just take a photo, upload it to ChatGPT, and say, "Hey, is this really, really bad? Should I be panicking?"
Yeah.
Because it seems somewhat out of the range. And ChatGPT was able to say, "Hey, you still got to talk to the doctor, but this isn't the craziest thing I've ever seen. This isn't way out of distribution." And so that's almost like a pure UI layer, but extremely valuable. I know it might not be like the right narrative for some people, that it's like not as innovative, but I think that like all that matters at the end of the day is giving people benefits.
It's
right?
always both.
It's always both.
Fundamentally, technology, just for technology's sake, it's not what Silicon Valley is about, right? Silicon Valley is about making something that people want, okay, and that people can actually use.
Exactly.
And so if you think about the nucleus innovation, it's two-pronged, okay? One is in the informatics, right? I've been doing this for 5 years.
Sure.
I would argue to myself that I probably spend too much time, developing the science, right? Because science in a nutshell isn't actually very useful. You need to expand access to it. So on that point, we do multiple different kinds of analyses. They make it such that we can actually provide the most comprehensive analyses that exist today. But moreover, and this is really I think a key point to your point, John, is people understand them. People can see them. I mean, you can pull up the platform. I'm not sure if you guys have shown it already, but it's very easy to compare your embryos. You can actually name your embryos. You can stack rank your embryos. You can understand what the score means. We lead with overall risk, or we tell you, for example, instead of saying you're in the 99th percentile for genetic risk for a condition, which, what does it actually mean? We say, hey, you have a 5% chance, or the like of, let's say, schizophrenia or some other condition. In other words, by leaving overall risk, people have much greater intuitive understanding of the results we're communicating to them. We have genetic counselors on hand. So this really is what are we showing here? Are we showing something? Are we showing
we pulled up your website.
That's another thing. That's a fun one. That's an Easter egg.
That's an Easter egg.
That's the kind of approach that we're taking here, and I think consumers are responding to it. Right? People want to have access to their data. The clinician, the doctor shouldn't decide what embryo to implant. You should.
Okay, so talk to me about what requires FDA approval. Obviously, new medical devices. Like if you were developing a machine to take in an embryo and sequence the DNA, I would expect that the FDA would want an approval for that medical device. But if you are taking data and just showing it to a customer in a different UI, that feels like probably a very light FDA process. And then there's probably a continuum in the middle where once you're making a recommendation, they have rules around that, right?
We as a company do not tell you which embryo to implant.
Sure.
Basically parents, the couple has complete agency to decide how they want to use the information to implant their embryo. Moreover, let's be clear, height, right? I mean, can height analysis be a medical device? It doesn't even make sense, right? IQ, height, there's traits, for example. We all, traits are something that I don't think necessarily belongs in even the kind of infrastructure of thinking about medical care, right? These are things that go beyond medical care. These are things like, that people just kind of intuitively know, and that there are DNA tests done every single day D2C for these analyses, because they're not disease analyses, right? So we do both diseases and traits, to be clear. My point is, many of these innovations, you have to wonder, should the government say if someone can or cannot pick their embryo based off height? That doesn't seem right to me. I think it should be in the complete liberty of the individual to decide that.
Yeah, but I mean, we're a democratic country, and so if a huge swath of the population says that the FDA should review that type of test or that type of analysis,
height analysis.
It could happen. I mean, the FDA reviews all sorts of different stuff. And so I guess the question shifts to do you expect a change from FDA on the way these analysis tools are regulated?
I think right now, the most important thing is just putting these high quality, rigorous scientific results in people's hands, and then helping them basically have healthier children, helping them give their child the best start in life. I think that generally speaking that, people should have more liberty, more choice in medicine. I think the broader longevity trend actually touches on that point as well. So that's what we're excited to do at Nucleus.
Yeah, I mean, the fact that you're partnering with a company on the actual medical device side, they are doing the sequencing of the embryos, that really takes it out of the Theranos question entirely in my mind. I feel like you should be beating the drum there a little bit more. It's like we didn't say we created some new device, but I don't know. You have to fight this.
Ship. That's the difference.
I know.
We ship. It's locked and solid, baby. Go look at it. Go use it. That's the evidence. Why is there a pudding? Okay.
I love the visual of John and his wife selecting between embryos, and it's like 610 or 72. Tough choice. Well, if we go with the 610, He has,
you know, could potentially
30,
fly commercial once in his life.
We can actually play this game right now.
Yeah.
Okay, here we're gonna play a game right now. I'm gonna put it in the chat.
Okay.
Pick your embryo.com. Okay, everyone listening to this, pick your embryo.com. I'm gonna go to it. Oh my God, here we go. Little Easter egg here. Okay, let's see what's more important to you, John. Intelligence or muscle strength? Come on.
Absolutely, muscle strength. Let's go. We're the future's bodybuilding.
Let's go. Okay,
yeah, John would take he would happily have a 5'2" son if he had, you know, top 0.01% bodybuilding genetics.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay, so which one here, lifespan or height?
Come
on, lifespan.
Lifespan. Let's go. Let's go. Maybe low depression. You got to be golden retriever mode. You got to be.
You need low depression.
You need low depression. Let's go low OCD. I don't mind bouncing around OCD. A bunch.
Okay, what's more?
Let's
risk-taking anxiety.
Let's go high risk taking. There we go.
Let's see. Let's see what you got. Okay, we're analyzing.
Is this some generative AI stuff going on? This is great.
Nadia.
I got Nadia too. The enduring athlete. Let's go. Physically strong, cautious, built to last. Yeah, this is great. Is this driving a lot of attention, a lot of downloads? Is this going viral yet? This seems like something that's designed to be shareable.
We just dropped it right now. Technology Brothers, we got you the exclusive.
Let's go.
There we go.
There you
Let's
go.
put it out there.
I want to see people. You can pick your embryo. People say, "What's it like?" Maybe you're not doing IVF yet. No problem.
It's funny. Only 9% of people choose Nadia.
Okay. Well, we're contrarian. We like that here.
Yeah,
that's fun.
Yeah,
it's great. Oh, well, congratulations on the news. Congratulations on the launch.
Yeah, the pace is wild. Last thing, what's going on with, have you seen these Just Blood billboards?
Oh, yeah.
They're all over LA.
So there's someone who's running a campaign right now, Justice for Elizabeth Holmes, claiming that Theranos was not the scam people think it was. And there's a documentary coming out, and there's billboards all over LA for Just Blood. Like, it's just blood. It's not that big of a deal.
And John, just to be clear, there's an exclusive on Technology Brothers next week from this person, right? They're going to tell their story next week, just to make sure you invited them already. I hope.
We are toying with the idea that someone reached out to kind of connect us. We're thinking about doing it, but we're not 100% sure that it would be appropriate for the
Based
show.
on the website, I don't know if it's appropriate.
Yeah, it doesn't look like it was designed with Figma, so I don't know. We can't quite do it. It's a little bit.
The team definitely doesn't use linear.
Yeah, but they claim that Elizabeth Holmes has been proven innocent, and so it's a bold claim. We like to see people making bold claims.
By what jury is my question?
Yeah, the jury of someone who knows HTML.
Kian,
always a great time.
The energy is
fantastic.
Off the charts. Electric.
Thank you for coming on, firing us up. Congratulations on the launch. We will talk to you soon.
I'll see you on Twitter for sure, okay?
We'll see you there.
Bye, guys. Bye.
He's going through launch day right now, which is just like,
ripping.
40 notifications every minute forever.
I love it. Well, next up, we have Kathleen from Valthos coming into the studio. Welcome to the stream. How are you doing, Kathleen? Nice to meet you.
Good. Thanks for having me on, guys.
Yeah,
nice
great to have you.
Would you mind kicking it off with just a little bit of an intro for those who might not know?
Yeah, absolutely. So I have been at Palantir for the last 7 years. Cool. I built our life science practice there. So taking some of the same platforms that Palantir uses in defense and intelligence and a bunch of industries, and then bringing those primitives over to pharma and biotech and researchers who need to study biomedical data in a secure and collaborative way. So really building out end-to-end drug development workflows all the way from early discovery. But then I left a couple months ago, and now I'm working on something new.
Very cool.
So yeah, happy to chat with you guys.
Yeah.
Awesome. I wanted to get your immediate reaction and help us kind of contextualize the news that came out yesterday or the day before, which was that 2 Chinese nationals have been charged by U.S. federal authorities with conspiracy and smuggling after attempting to bring a dangerous biological pathogen, which I'm going to botch the name, into the United States. This fungus is classified in scientific literature as a potential agroterrorism weapon due to its ability to devastate key crops such as wheat, barley, corn, and rice, causing a number of issues there. So I wanted to kind of get you don't have to go into too much detail, but kind of a high-level background on bioterrorism broadly, kind of maybe some like prominent examples, and then even just get your immediate reaction to the news. Is this kind of thing surprising to you, or are you surprised that we're not hearing more headlines about it all the time?
Yeah, totally. So I think to the second question first, It's like a bad surprise, obviously, but we are absolutely entering this era of an elevated risk of biothreats. So sadly, I don't think it's something that we should be that surprised about. I think this story in particular, and we don't know that many details on the story, so I won't speak too much to it, but the one, it highlights how easy it is really to have any biological material pass across borders. It's obviously both natural or unnatural. And then the second is that any kind of agricultural pathogen is also an enormous threat. So I think when people think biodefense and bioterrorism, they think anthrax or smallpox, which is obviously horrible. But the idea that you could introduce a pathogen that would devastate one of our like primary crops, that would have massive health impact, but it would also completely destabilize our economy, and send us into something far worse than what we would see with COVID. So I do think when we in governments think about biodefense, it's very much both in terms of human health, and agricultural health. But to your other question on what's the primer on biodefense, what are we worried about? I think there's always been this. So we've always had the problem that people study the most pathogenic organisms in the world. They usually do it in a biosafety lab, a BSL lab. These are all over the world. Some regions are obviously more secure than others. So there's always this threat of something natural leaking or being used maliciously. But basically, two things changed recently and made that a lot worse. One is that our ability to edit genomes and actually start changing those pathogens, there's a bunch of new tools to do that. So like things like CRISPR, which you hear about usually in the medical sense of editing a genome, are available on pathogens. Synthesizing new nucleotides or new DNA to do that with, also now commercially available. Like we could order nucleotides, or you could print them out in some cases in a desktop printer. So that made it, now we're dealing with things that nature has never seen. And then in the last couple of years with large language models or biospecific language models, we have this idea of AI uplift. So it means that someone like us, not to underestimate your biological skills, but could actually be coached into how do we use these tools, guided all the way into making something that is actually way worse than anything nature has ever seen. And this isn't like science fiction. Like Anthropic talked last week, I think, about Claude 4. They did internal safety trials. They noticed an uplift that goes way beyond just, oh, it's easier to Google a paper about how to do this, and really into that, allowing a novice to access something dangerous. So they released Claude 4 with new security standards to try to combat that. But a lot of models aren't like that. Not everyone has those security standards,
Yeah, totally. I mean, this has happened. Like, what is it? Timothy McVeigh looked up how to build a bomb with fertilizer and basically blew up like a massive government building. And the wreckage from that was insane. If you think about what it would take a terrorist to work in a biosafety lab, it's obviously very complex, but getting easier as you can have an LLM coach you through the process. Essentially, right? Is that roughly the nature of the threat?
Yeah, both in terms of the actual steps to take and then what to change about a virus that would make it either evade some kind of countermeasure, which is like some kind of medicine that we have for it, or be more infectious. And I think the real, like, what has a lot of attention and weighs on people's minds is that we're not talking about like a state-sponsored nuclear program that you need these like massive budgets and facilities to make something like that. Like it's a laboratory and a computer. So it's a really different dynamic of threat than what we've been dealing with in the past.
And it kind of self-replicates by itself. That's like the whole goal.
It's an interesting story to me because obviously over the weekend there was the Ukraine story around Operation Spiderweb, and that was relatively asymmetric, and that whatever the cost of the operation, the trucks and the drones, just even if it was $100 million, which seems really, really high, right? Even if it was taking huge teams, it destroyed $1 billion plus of assets on the other side. And then when you talk about bio warfare and bioterrorism, it's like, okay, one or two people with access to a lab could potentially do billions and billions of dollars of damage. Do you think this is a wake-up call, or this will be a wake-up call for the government broadly? How do you expect, what are the different kind of ways in which the United States can defend itself from these types of obviously this wasn't, whatever's being reported isn't a direct attack, but a potential threat in the future.
Yeah. The good news is DOD here, MOD in the UK, there's a lot of defense organizations already thinking about this and really trying to get ahead of it. It means that we have way more to do, but at least it's on the agenda. And I think it comes down to So you're like, the best defense would be to prevent this from happening. So putting better safeguards on models, putting really strong regulation on synthesis. So who can synthesize what? How do we track that? That's great. There's actually some legislation in the works on both of those things, but that works domestically and it works to contain an accident. But if we're actually talking about international collaboration, like those kinds of regulations are not really enough. So then we get into thinking, how do you deter something like this, to your point? Like, what is the defense against this? And there's really like three pillars that go into it. The first is, how quickly can you detect that something happened? So in this case, or in future cases, do we immediately know that something new is circulating, that it's high risk to us, that it maybe will evade any kind of countermeasure that we have? And can we know that before it's an outbreak and we're sampling from a hospital? And then that leads into the second one, which is, how fast can we design or update a countermeasure, so like an antibody or some kind of biologic, to combat that? And that is really like, if we can diagnose and develop as fast as possible, then these weapons are much less powerful, because you're not talking about billions of damages. You're talking about a couple cases that are quickly contained. And the last part, of course, is attribution. So if you can actually say, where did this come from? Did it come from nature? Did it come from engineering? Did it come from a nation state? That lets you bring the rest of the DoD and the State Department and our allies towards preventing something in the future. And if you can get that cycle down to hours, really, in terms of detecting, stopping, and then attributing, then you actually have a really robust profile for defense. And there's a bunch of new tech that's going to help make that better. So this is scary, but it also is, there's good news on the horizon too.
Can you talk a little bit about the bio practice at Palantir? I mean, there's been a lot of potentially like misunderstanding or misinformation about how Palantir works. I think most people who understand the company at this point understand that it is an ontology platform that sits on top of a large database. But I think what I'm struggling with is, I understand if you're using like the Airbus case study, you have a database with all the different parts of the airplane, and then Palantir helps you understand how the different pieces and lead times for this screw and this seat belt and this engine part fits all together. So if you're demand planning or figuring out how to manufacture airplanes, that's a very helpful tool to understand your supply chain. That makes sense to me in the very concrete widgets business that is airplane manufacturing, although it is obviously very complex. In the bio or pharmaceutical space, I don't really understand the nature of how large these data sets are. Are we talking about trial data or manufacturing? Is it all of these above? Like, how does all of that fit together when you're thinking about applications of understanding large data sets in just the bio world broadly?
Yeah, definitely. So some of it is more similar to what you described with Airbus, where we're talking about manufacturing. We're talking about something that's like, it's a process with a lot of moving parts. How do you make these all synchronous and update when you need to? There's also obviously biologics manufacturing. Some of it is more in the logistics end, which Palantir also talks about quite a bit. So when you're running a trial, making sure that patients and the medicine that they need are in the right place at the right time with the right support staff, that's actually looks pretty similar to coordinating flight routes or staffing a hospital. So those parts are super similar to the rest of Palantir. The part that's probably most unique is when we're actually talking about that trial data or talking about patient level information. And there it really gets back to some of the core concepts of Palantir is, how do you work with multimodal data and see patterns across it? So if we're looking back historically on all trials that we've run and we want to start trying to identify what kind of patients have the best response to this or what are potential side effects, can you start linking together data that's from like a medical record with samples from a lab with sequencing data if you have it? And can you do that in a way that is completely secure, completely auditable, and complies with all the regulation in the space? And that's really the niche that Palantir, maybe it's not always well understood to fit into, but that is what that platform was built for.
Can you talk a little bit more about the long-term future of what you're building? I know that you can't go into it too much, but like there are a bunch of different vectors and opportunities around what we're building in bio and what we're trying to prevent. There's almost like a there's a little bit of game theory going on here. So what would you like to see the United States really dominate going forward, and where are the biggest opportunities to both increase biosecurity and then also help accelerate the developments that we need, the good stuff?
And that is what I'm most excited about.
Yeah.
Of all of these technologies that are really scary when we're talking about them like this, actually do have the potential to give us this enormous global advantage in our bioeconomy and how we respond to these threats and make medicine too. It's two sides of the same coin. I think the two areas that we're most excited about, one is on that detection pillar.
Yeah.
So right now, a lot of the ways that we understand what's going on around us is super analog. We have like a list of pathogens we're looking for. We test and we get a yes or a no if those exist, and not much more than that. We've already seen a shift in this space towards sequencing. So actually getting the DNA sequence from anything that's in the environment or any sample. So that both broadens the scope of what we're looking at rather than just having tunnel vision on the pathogens we know about, which means that we can start detecting unknown unknowns and things that we've never seen and make a risk assessment. Also, using sequence data lets you have this much deeper level of insight into what the risk is, rather than just, there's a virus here. You could say, these mutations make it more adapted to this type of host, or make it more dangerous, or make it evade a certain type of medicine that we already have. And then you can take all of that information that you get on this more robust detection layer and use it to drive countermeasure design. So we now have, like, every biotech that you guys talk to probably talks about programmable therapeutics, where we're moving to this era where you can update based on how the targets update. And if we have this deep level of intelligence, we can also start thinking about, rather than have a stale stockpile of medicines that were made 10 years ago, can we actually see a threat, immediately change the countermeasure, and then start deploying that immediately? So I think getting that cycle down really tight, that's what the future is, hopefully.
Are we testing enough? I know when I go through TSA at LAX, someone who was doing research, maybe for the CDC I talked to, was saying that, like, they basically just focus on LAX because that's like the biggest hub of virus. It's going to freak everyone out who flies. It's like, if you're going to get sick, like if you go to LAX, that's where it all starts. It's like a petri dish. I know that they swab my hands for, I think it's like bomb making materials, but should they be swabbing my hands for new pathogens? Should we be doing more in the detection? Should we be sequencing random farmland to see if there's new invasive pathogens that could be targeting our crops? How, and then, like, how do we even pay for that? Is that something that the government should foot the bill, or corporations should be incentivized to pay for? What is the actual, like, upping the amount of data that we're ingesting look like?
Yeah, I mean, I'm always going to say more data is better.
Yeah, but the question's like,
Palantir
how do we get more data? How do we incentivize more data, buy more data, test for more data?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think of course, we should collect more. The type of sequencing actually helps drive down the cost, because you can target a wider range of things you might worry about, rather than setting up individualized programs for specific pathogens when maybe that's not a threat. But I actually think with the caveat of more data is always better, we actually do collect a lot of this data today. You don't necessarily see it because some of it is in wastewater or environmental samples, like you're saying. We don't always extract that much intelligence from the data that we do collect. So we know that a sequence exists. We might not necessarily know what that means in terms of health or the impact of that variant or that mutation. So I do think there is benefit, and there's, like, cost-effective benefit for collecting more. But a big piece is just of the data that does come in, how do we build the right models and the right software to interpret that?
Makes sense.
Makes a lot of sense. I think that covers it for now. I would love to have you come back on when you're ready to talk more about specifics on what you're building. And I feel grateful that you and the team are doing what you're doing.
Thank you.
And just work a little bit faster, please. It feels like
Awesome.
But thank you for coming on and giving us some insight here. And congrats on starting the founder path.
Thanks very much, guys. Great chatting, and hopefully chat soon.
Cheers. Bye. Thank you.
Next up, we have Roy from Cluely coming back for an update. He's hired 50 interns, I think, or something close to it.
He said they're bringing every intern on.
They're bringing every intern on.
We got every intern coming in.
Well, welcome to the studio, Roy. How are you doing? Oh, my God.
Let's go.
How you doing?
There they are.
I think we're overpowering you. Can you hear us?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yeah,
Fantastic.
make sure we're zoomed out all the way so we can see everybody. We got a small army here.
This is incredible. How big is the team? Kick us off. How many you got at this point?
The team is 11 full-time plus the interns.
How many interns you got so far?
Interns, bro, we're closing in on 50, brother.
Let's go.
Get there.
That's amazing. Congratulations. What are they all doing? How do you manage everything? Is it purely social media? Is that what you want them to focus on? Growth?
Yeah, growth marketing. Like the only goal of the company is get 1 billion eyeballs onto Cluely. So we have unrestricted creative freedom and permission to do anything and everything. Just make the company go viral. Every single person you see behind you has over 100,000 followers on some social media platform.
Wow.
200,000 plus.
That's remarkable.
Me too now.
Yeah,
there we
you're
go.
Up there. Oh
there
yeah, you probably popped. What's working? What platforms have actually been driving the most growth? I mean, I'm sure you've run a lot of tests. What have you learned that you can share?
Bro, Ben, take it away, bro.
Let's hear it.
UGC's been really good. We just hit 10 million views today.
10 million views.
8 days.
Wow.
There we go.
Hoping to get 100 million views in the next month.
What platforms specifically are the most fertile ground for targeting your specific customer? Because you can imagine that there's a lot of folks who are AI curious on X, but then there's a much broader, more viral audience, more general audience on platforms like TikTok, YouTube, Instagram. What's working, and what is the next platform that you're going to be focused on?
Yeah, well, we're trying to go viral on every platform, regardless. Yeah. But the main thing right now is Instagram Reels.
Mm-hmm. Oh, Instagram Reels. Interesting. And what is the main value prop that you're hitting people with? Is it still the cheat on test thing, or have you evolved at all? What? Still?
Actually, interviews, yeah.
Interviews, okay. And has there been, this was controversial when you launched it. Is it still controversial in the comments? Are you getting flamed? Has anyone big dunked on you? And has that driven virality? Is that actually a net positive?
Instagram is not like Twitter. Like you could post the craziest shit on Instagram and they still will not think it's controversial.
Really?
So how to make it controversial, like we have to engage in bait some other way. Like it's cheating tool is controversial on Twitter, but on Instagram, you could have like a white guy say the N-word 10 times and it's still not controversial enough. You know, like you need crazy shit on Instagram. That's what we crack. Every single person here has like very great viral sense.
Yeah.
And if you watch the reels that do go viral, you see there's like ways that we've engagement baited the videos, and this is what we'll keep doing to probably 1 billion views a month is probably.
How long does it take to figure out if an intern is cracked? Is it like an hour, 2 hours? How much time do you need?
For me personally, probably like 10 minutes, but for anybody watching, probably would take like one or 2 weeks.
There we go. How do you guys think about product marketing? Obviously, you're just going viral everywhere, getting all this attention. How do you make sure that it I love that he's shaking his head on the right. Doesn't think about, it's not about the product, it's about the attention. Attention is all you need.
Make anything go viral.
Yeah.
But how do you,
the side of the street, you know, you make some UGC videos, make some Twitter posts, you know, you can sell anything. You know, in 2025, product doesn't matter. You know, I could jack off the side of a building, sell some videos of it for $20 each, make $2 trillion. It's crazy.
Good. $2 trillion. That's intense. How do you guys think about burn? Is it on your mind? Is it on your mind at all?
I don't know if you saw the last tweet, but as of literally like 2 days ago, we're still cash flow positive. We're still fucking profitable.
We're still profitable.
Let's give it up for the profitability.
Let's hear it.
It sounds.
So you're charging for the product and people are paying. Are they at all satisfied, or do they feel like they got scammed?
Satisfied, bro. Like the product works. You're either using this as a consumer and it's working because like you're passing your interviews, or if it doesn't work, you're not gonna complain to me because I'm gonna go right to your employer and tell them, yo, guess who's complaining about using the product? Like I'll get you blacklisted if you complain, bro.
How are you thinking about how are you guys thinking about product evolutions? What do you want to add to the product? Obviously, you want to help people cheat on everything. Where are you going to help people cheat next?
We don't care about, like, the product is going to be led by the virality of the content. Mm-hmm. We have video ideas right now that we're going to try to push for different use cases. We're going to see which ones go consistently the most viral. If you can make something go more viral, then like you can just build the technology after you have all the attention. So we'll figure out the exact use cases and exact niches we're going to quintuple down on once these guys get to work.
What formats on Instagram Reels are like the most modern in terms of consistently viral? Like you mentioned, like man on the street interviews. What do you do for a living? That's always been a fertile ground. What about? I see a lot of those like mobile game ads that look like you're fighting down some sort of bridge, and then you go into the game. It's actually just match 3. What are the different formats that you like to pull from?
Every week there's 2 new ones, and at any point there's probably 10 to 20 viral trends that is happening, and these cycle so quick. You need to keep your finger on the pulse. These things will like expire immediately. You need to be on the ball, and like if I told you right now, by the time people watch this on YouTube, like it would have all been expired.
Well, we're live, so give us the latest and greatest. Like what's going viral today?
Well, right now we got 10 million views using a Snapchat format.
Okay.
Viral for like the last 3 years, to be honest.
Okay.
And I think that like we just have to get people who continuously scroll TikTok like 6 hours a day.
Yeah. But what's the actual format that you use? Like describe the video. What is the hook? Like break it down for me like you're explaining the art behind the viral format.
There's a caption. It starts with a face, usually a handsome dude or a pretty girl. They're saying, "Damn, this interview is starting with the hard questions. I should have been a CS major, not a business major." That's engagement bait because people are saying like, "Bro, like CS is way harder than business." Then it turns around, the interviewer asks like, "Hey, how are you doing? Why should we hire you?" And then this guy uses Cluey to generate a response, but he can't fucking read the response, so he reads it hella autistically, like, "Oh, I revel in detail," and then that is like another conversation point. Like people are cooking on the guy because he can't read properly. The guy is like doing a really dumb interview using Cluey.
That's great.
How are you guys using AI generated content internally? I know a lot of the videos that you guys are creating are just typical social media vertical video. Do you have an intern that's just generating basically copy and pasting, making
B-roll,
a bunch of other
VO3 or any
interns,
of these tools relevant?
Anything clicking?
Not yet. I think there's still like a 10% left before they cross the uncanny valley. And the biggest thing is that people need to think your video is real. That like that is the difference between 100K views and 10 million views if people think that's real.
Yeah, clearly AI CEOs bearish on AI.
What about what?
Google needs like 10 more Chinese researchers to like figure it out, and once they push out the latest update, then VO3 will be there. But right now, we need real people.
Yeah. Well, I mean, what about just using AI as like stock footage replacement, not as the lead in for the video, not the entire video, but just like sprinkled in to illustrate a point, an establishing shot of like a building, a helicopter pulling into a building, like that historically has been kind of something that you would reach to, Adobe stock video for. VO3 feels like it's there, but are you not drawing on that at all yet?
If there's a viral format when we need it, maybe we'll use it. But right now, like it's really brain dead to go viral on Instagram.
Yeah.
The formats are not hard. You don't need a helicopter. You need a guy, a camera, a really shitty camera, and you need a computer. That's it.
I mean, what about like those kind of like AI mashups, like Harry Potter Balenciaga or the kangaroo with the plane ticket getting on the plane? Like AI content can go viral when it's really when it's like inspired almost by a human. It's not entirely AI generated, but it's using the tools effectively to create something that's like still catchy. Do you think you'll be using any of that anytime soon?
Probably very soon. We're scaling up. Like what you see right now is probably about less than 1% of what the size we will be by the end of the summer. Like we are profitable. We're not trying to be profitable. We just keep making so much money. We can't help it. So we're really scaling this shit up. I'm not even trolling you. 1,000 creators are going to be shipping out content. We're doing a complete internet takeover.
Okay, so why in-house? Why do they even have to be employees? Couldn't you turn this into like a multi-level marketing scheme or something, a pyramid scheme?
Exactly
or like
what we're going to do. That's exactly
that's what you're going to do. Okay.
MLM.
AI.
Are you guys worried that you could be infiltrated by journalists? I'm sure they're circling the house right now.
The hit pieces are going to come. We're doing a softball interview right now.
I mean, the person that's brave enough to try to do a hit piece on the Cluey army
it's going to be.
I bet they're dying to. Look, more eyeballs is better. There's no company that ever died from a founder being too controversial. You got Deel fucking infiltrating with genuine spies, and they're still doing fine, bro. You got fucking Worker 17 guys. They're still kicking. Like no company ever dies from being too controversial. You die because you don't make enough fucking money.
Yeah. Speaking of making money, what's the pricing model right now? Are you doing anything on price discrimination? Is there a super high tier if you get a whale? What does a Cluely whale look like? Can I spend $2,000 a month on this service?
Yeah, you should add a tipping feature too.
Yeah.
People should be able to tip you guys if they have a good experience.
You should add
they get the job.
like really financialization, pay as you go, high interest rate loans. Just really push it. Make it sports gambling in there maybe. Just throw it all in.
Yeah, I mean, it's $20 a month for consumer, $100 a year. And our top line revenue is really being driven up by enterprise. Enterprise, you're gonna have to talk to the sales team to get a custom quote, but there's a lot.
Are you serious? What are the? Is that more on the sales side? Who are the enterprise?
So you sell to SDRs?
You guys laugh because you think I can't sell enterprise because I'm.
No, I don't believe it. I trust.
Like these Fortune 500 CEOs, like these are like 35-year-old dudes who sit there scrolling through Twitter laughing at my posts.
Yeah. No, it seems legit. It makes sense.
No, I believe it.
But I mean, you're not going even higher tier. Like, what's the $2,000 a month Cluely vision?
For consumer, there's a lot more we can do with more compute. But right now, we're like, to be honest, I didn't expect to grow this fast. The eng team is quite small. I'm like spending a lot of time trying to hire more competent engineers. We have a lot of backlog tasks that we need to fill out, especially for this last contract that we signed. So we're full-time focusing on the one big guy that we got right now. And after that, then we'll try and scale this up. But right now, we're focused on the one big client that we signed.
Yeah.
Talk about your compensation strategy that people want to know. You said you can raise infinite capital, and you're so confident. I believe you. But I'm curious to get some more insight there.
Bro, I feel like it's so retarded to be a company. Sorry, am I allowed to say that?
No, you're not allowed.
No, this is a family-friendly show.
It's very stupid to be a company trying to race to the bottom to see how little you can pay your employees. Bro, if I'm making hella money, we're all making hella money. I'm trying to pay them more to see if, maybe tomorrow we'll start being like cash flow negative. But I just make up money, bro. Like I would like to pay these guys what they're worth, and the output is fucking insane. We did 10 million UGC views in 8 days. Like you don't see this sort of traction in any company, and you don't see killers like this in any company unless you're paying these motherfuckers like what they're worth, bro. Like I don't know what, like 135.
Maxed out contracts.
Exactly.
Yeah. What about devices? I mean, it seemed like this would be a natural fit for some sort of AI wearable or other platform. Is there an app coming, or are you interested in what's happening with Johnny Ive and OpenAI? What's your take on the device world?
We're very interested in the hardware space. We've got like a million things cooking on hardware. We got people in the garage right now working on shit you don't even know about, bro. Like we're bringing manufacturing back to America, and it all starts at the Cluely garage.
Cluely garage.
Let's go. I'd love to see it. Nobody, they doubted, but you guys are reindustrializing America. You guys really are the
post-tech down there. They're working on brain chips down there.
Yeah.
Brain chips.
That's the future.
There we go. There we go. The new Neuralink. Yeah, I mean, I there's a world in the future where you guys actually just roll up Neuralink and OpenAI. Bring them under the Cluely umbrella.
Yeah,
right?
Definitely.
It's possible.
I'm excited to offer acquisitions for both of those companies.
Yeah.
It's in the roadmap.
It's on the road. All right, this has been a lot of fun. I'm excited for you guys. It is, and I have no doubt that you'll go from 10 million views a week to 100. And I'm excited to see you guys hit that billion view mark very soon. So keep it up. We are all very entertained and rooting for you.
Shit.
I love the energy. Thanks, man. We appreciate you joining.
Later, guys.
We'll talk to you
soon. Having fun.
Bye. You know what he needs? He needs linear. He needs linear to manage all his interns.
Sounds chaotic in there. He needs to use the platform purpose built to design and build the best products on earth.
Oh, you nailed that.
I bet they already use linear, to be honest.
Meet the system for modern software development, streamline issues, projects, and product roadmaps. Go to linear and get started today. I wanted to go through the Sarah Guo piece because we are having Sean on because he is throwing the AI Engineer World's Fair, and he's going to be joining with some other folks, breaking down what's going there. We can kind of revisit this Sarah Guo post, which we talked about later, possible topics for her keynote. Apparently she completely revised everything, but I really liked it. She wanted to talk about AI native UX, not just chat skins, vertical AI surge. That was something we were discussing earlier. Multimodal frontier, video, 3D, audio, retrieval plus long-term memory, synthetic data flywheels, obviously super important. The sim to real robotics push, closing the autonomy gap, robust agentic workflows, cell scale, digital twins, and programmable biology, compute geopolitics, world models for zero-shot planning, and RL environments that actually generalize. She has mapped out the true surface area, but more recently she authored a post, an article on X, directly on X. You can read the full thing at her X page, Sarah Normus, on taste. And I thought this was an interesting post. Lulu quote tweeted it, and she says, Stripe returns errors in plain English. Quote, that card number doesn't look right, not error _ invalid parameter, because developers debug at 2 a.m. Spotify's shuffle isn't random. It avoids playing the same artist twice in 5 songs. True random feels broken. Engineered random feels right. Notion's drag handle appears only on hover. 6 dots arranged in 2 columns, not 3 lines, not always visible. Because permanence is clutter, and 6 dots whisper, grab me, while 3 lines shout, I'm a menu. I love it. This is taste, the relentless, almost painful ability to know what should exist, what shouldn't, and where quality matters. It's the difference between shipping a product and shipping a point of view. The best founders understand that taste is a competitive advantage that compounds. It runs deeper than pixels. It's in your code base, your culture, your cap table. And I'm just thinking about the Cluely taste, which is just like it's the most maximal possible.
Just maxing everything.
He's maxing.
He's maxing.
He's such a character. I love that we can have him on and then have someone, a public company CEO on the same.
We got range.
We got range. It's fun.
That was absolutely wild. We should probably text the families and say, don't play this in front of the kids.
Yeah,
but he knows. The level, he even in every word, he's thinking of how do I get the max amount of attention out of each incremental word.
Totally.
Right? It's not just each incremental post.
No. He knows what he's doing, even on the show.
I am like systemically offending people in multiple ways in a single sentence.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like he's entitled to be his own personality.
Yeah.
And I do think, not to get completely sidetracked now that we're on to the next topic, but I do think, an enterprising young journalist might want to take a crack at Roy just because it will turn into a feud.
Yep.
It will probably be good for both of them.
It will be very mutually beneficial. It's WWE.
It's WWE. Paywall the article.
He's become a little bit of a heel of tech. He's somebody that people love to hate.
It's like, how do you take the YC playbook and just run the opposite of it?
Yeah.
Like it is the inverse of the YC playbook, which is, be loud before you're confident in your business model and confident in your product.
The question is just like, at some point, it can't all be style. There needs to be some substance. You have to actually build a product that people will love. You have to make something people want. And so we're not seeing that side right now, obviously, at least not in public interviews. But I hope that he can turn it off incrementally, and eventually you probably need to turn it off 90% of the time. Because yes, attention is really, really important right now, but at a certain point, you have to just deliver on the core metrics and the value prop, or else someone else will come along and offer something with they won't have all the style, but they will have the substance.
And I think there's a venture capital firm out there that even now would give him an increment, just seeing even that interview, see that and be like, I'll give this team another 10 mil.
Yeah, just to go figure it out.
To go keep figuring it out, right?
I mean, attention is incredibly valuable.
But he's also being smart in that he's figured out, he basically has the world almost convinced that he's going to burn through every dollar he has in the next 2 months.
Oh, totally.
Which is pretty, but behind the scenes, he's like, well, I'm actually making money.
Yeah, I mean, Avi Shipman at Friend was going through a similar thing where there was that big story about, he raised like a $2 million seed round and he bought a $1 million domain, and everyone was like, oh, he's so wasteful. But then, of course, he would finance the domain, so it was really just adding like an incremental $30K of burn per month, and it wasn't really like he didn't take that whole hit up front, and then he was able to kind of build the business.
Yeah, and he's making a category bet on AI companionship, and having friend.com will lead to increased marketing efficiency over time
as
he starts to scale. So.
Well,
anyways, we should go back to this completely.
You know what he should do? He should get a watch on Bezel. He should go to getbezel.com. Really start
Bezel is how
flexing
you
on people.
express
Your Bezel concierge is available now to source you any watch on the planet. Seriously, any watch. So go to getbezel.com. So Sarah goes on to say, think of it like running a restaurant. It's so funny comparing the taste thing to this. It's like the most serious post. There's the most silly, just silly hype train over there. Think of it like running a restaurant. Anyone can follow recipes, source ingredients, and serve food. But the difference between a forgettable meal and a Michelin star isn't just technique. It's the chef's palate, their ability to know when something needs more acid, when a dish has one element too many, when to stop plating. Software is the same, but products aren't just feature complete. They're composed. And we see this with like a lot of the best software products. The software is more like art than science in terms of like the design and how you're interacting with the user. So Sarah says it's easy to say, hard to do. Everyone claims to have taste now. It becomes the new product market fit, a term so overused it's lost meaning. Founders drop, we're taste driven in pitch meetings. VCs nod knowingly. Nobody defines it. Most companies confuse taste with aesthetics. They hire a design agency, pick a nice font and call it done. But real taste runs deeper in the error message, the loading sites, the loading states, the features you killed because they were merely good, not essential. Real taste hurts. It's saying no to features that would triple your TAM. It's spending a week perfecting an interaction that users will barely notice consciously. It's choosing the harder technical path because the UX is 10% better. If your taste doesn't cost you something, it's not taste, it's preference. The pain compounds daily. A Fortune 500 prospect wants a demo tomorrow. Do you ship a half-baked feature or the half-assed collateral or lose the deal? The entire AI landscape reshuffles every 3 weeks. Do you chase every new model or trust your vision? Your competitor just shipped something flashy. Do you match it or hold your ground? Anyway, we'll have to have Sarah on the show to recap her talk. But right now, I believe we have Sean coming in to the studio to tell us about the AI Engineering World's Fair. We're very excited to have him join the show. Thanks so much for hopping on. I wish I could be there. I have the biggest FOMO I've ever had with any tech conference because the lineup seemed absolutely fantastic. Unfortunately, I have a large family and a studio that is covered in junk and we're moving in. So I appreciate you taking this remotely and we'll have to do the next one in person. But thanks so much for joining today. How are you doing?
Hey guys, glad to be back. It's funny because like your setup looks so great on camera. I'm just imagining the mess that's off camera.
Oh yeah. It's definitely a work in progress. But part of the brand is of course just showing the nice parts. But congratulations. This is many years in the making. Can you give us a little bit of the history, the plan, and then I want to go into some of the hot topics that you've been discussing today.
Yeah, I guess this is the fourth conference we've done. And I started this basically right after the sort of ChatGPT movement and talking with enough developers and understanding that the people who can wield LLM APIs are going to be way more powerful than people who just chat with products. And this is actually going to widen a lot because they can basically wield serverless intelligence. And so I coined, I sort of popularized the term AI engineer. Andre Karpathy sort of endorsed it. He said that he does believe that you can get very far without ever training anything, which is a big thing for him to say because I think the status quo at the time was, it's high status to train models and research scientists. But now it's actually consensus now that you want to work on wrappers rather than models. And there are many, many multi-billion-dollar companies that have spoken at AI engineer that reflect that fact. So like I guess.
And there was a big shift there where there was a moment where the vibe had shifted a little bit to like the application layer, but there was still the idea that if you were going to build an AI legal startup, you were going to train an AI legal foundation model. And now it's moved all to post-training, all to RL and how you're prompting and how you're integrating and ultimately like the user interface. And so, yeah, it makes a ton of sense. And I'm sure there's a ton of companies that are beneficiaries of that boom.
Yeah. And it's not even companies, it's more just like customers.
Sure.
Because the foundation model labs are never going to work directly with like your healthcare system. Like it's going to be like a bridge that that comes up and does that. If they're not, the foundation model labs are not going to work directly with lawyers. It's going to be Harvey. I think so that directly led into the rise of vertical AI enabled SaaS, and I mean that's consensus now. But yeah, I'm sorry, that's a Slack thing that. Yeah. But by the way, the conference is still going on. We just had the morning keynotes. Cool. I have my chat with Greg Brockman later today.
Fantastic.
And he doesn't know this, but I might as well just share this. But like we have a nice little cameo from Jensen Huang coming by.
No way.
That's great.
Yeah. That's so like we're trying to level up. The keynotes this morning were fantastic. Like the Microsoft keynote, they like really went on. They're going so hard after the AI audience.
We were just reading about that in the information.
Platform,
says Satya.
Yeah. I think they see this as their chance to overtake AWS.
That's great. Wow.
But like AWS is also, also sponsoring the event and having a very strong presence with us. So like we just want to be the vendor neutral place, right? Like all the big clouds, all the big labs work with us. We have the MCP team here with the entire steering committee presenting as well. And we just want to be for developers. Like this is where this like kind of the trade show, you come to hire people, learn about what's new and upskill.
I have a couple more questions. How long do you have exactly? 5 minutes or?
I can go till like 1:30. So
okay, great. Yeah. So
we had a guest and I moved into a different day.
Okay, perfect. So I want to know about the mix of attendees. How many folks are trying to start venture backable application layer AI companies versus is there a new trend of someone who's building more of a vibe coded, almost lifestyle type AI driven business? Are there folks from either companies that have established themselves and are now trying to bolt on AI, or are there lots of folks that are working for large companies and just want to stay ahead and become AI engineers? What's kind of the shape of the audience, if you can characterize it at all?
Yeah, so we do surveys, but we don't know specifics to that high level granularity. Yeah. I would say about 50% are people working at medium to large size companies and trying to upskill, and then the others are smaller companies, and our most popular title is like founder or CXO of like a smaller startup. And those are venture backable, and I think mostly that's just a function of us being in San Francisco. Because obviously we will have that startup bias. I do think that one thing I kind of don't really care about this whole lifestyle versus venture back thing, because for example, I have a Tiny Teams track that's speaking this year. Tiny Teams is something that I'm trying to push as an idea of companies that have more millions in ARR than employees, right? So your revenue efficiency is so high because obviously if you pay each employee less than $1 million, you're probably profitable, and therefore you don't actually need the venture money except to pour into marketing. And that's your choice. You can be profitable. I have a 6-person team making more than $40 million. And I mean, it's absurd. Like the amount of leverage you can get with agents, and also building AI products for other people to use, where you're just kind of passing through or slapping a margin on top of the tokens that you resell from the big model labs. I think that really makes a lot of sense.
Totally. Has the narrative of like, oh, if you're building an AI, like you're going to become obsolete by Google, or OpenAI is going to steamroll you in their next Dev Day keynote. Has that narrative dissipated, and if so, what's driving it? Is it kind of the pre-training scaling wall that we're kind of seeing with GPT 4.5?
You guys still, I don't know if people are still talking about that. I mean, everyone's
moved on.
We've moved on to a different time, right? Like, I think most people have agreed. Like there are still new pre-trains happening, especially with the open source model that OpenAI is working on. I mean, I think we've seen it come and go enough times. So for example, we have OpenAI launching ChatGPT Codex, which is just hit on a direct Devin competitor. Devin's not worried because they have been doing this for 2 years, and they're much more polished in terms of the integrations, and they have different things that their customers already like. And so I think it's just like everyone is going to need their version of a thing. And so this is the sort of house store brand version of what ChatGPT Codex could be. And it's not competitive just because the ocean is so huge. for software engineering, and Devin has at least established the category by being first there. And I think you can see similar versions of that across the domain. Yeah, I haven't really seen anything there yet. Although it's not to say that it doesn't happen. It does happen.
Yeah, of
for
course.
example, with the first wave of GPT-3 startups like Jasper.
Yeah.
But I mean, yeah, so far there's no fear of that. In fact, people are very excited to meet the foundation model labs. Like this is where the engineers meet the lab people, and the lab people train them on how to use their LLMs. And I think that's a perfectly harmonious relationship, to be honest. I haven't seen any.
What was your reaction to the news around Anthropic and Windsurf yesterday?
Oh my God. Yeah, a little bit of awkwardness,
a little bit of
there.
drama on the timeline. But
So, yeah.
Give us a walkthrough for those who might not be familiar of what happened, and then I'd love your analysis.
Yeah. So the history of this is that Windsurf is an independent company that basically kind of followed Cursor's footsteps and launched an AI agentic IDE. They've done very, very well for themselves in a very short amount of time. I think they launched, we're the first podcast that they launched with in October or November last year. And then there's been rumors that they got acquired by OpenAI for $3 billion. Those are rumors that are unconfirmed by both sides. I've talked to both sides.
Yeah, I've been fascinated how everybody just takes it as fact.
I take it as fact.
But
he wore two polos.
He wore two polos, but again, at no point every news outlet, legacy news outlets have been reporting it as fact, even though no side has verified it and nobody's said it closed or anything along those lines.
Yeah, the only thing I can say is Windsurf is speaking tonight right before Greg Brockman goes on, and there's a reason.
Exciting.
We're not dropping a ton of alpha, but I'm just saying that's all I can say. That's all I'm allowed to say.
Yes, of course.
And I think that there's a relationship there, just as there is a fact that both Cursor and Windsurf have benefited a lot from their relationship with Anthropic, because Claude 3.5 and 3.7 have, for whatever it's worth, been regarded as the best coding models.
Yep.
OpenAI will disagree. Gemini will disagree, but whatever. Like the community has voted.
Yeah.
So overnight, I think like 2 days ago, 1 day ago, Anthropic cut off the first-party access to Claude for Claude to Windsurf. This is their top model, and now they just don't have access as a first-party tool. You can, for example, still bring your API key and use your account on Windsurf, but it's right. You can't just like Windsurf, I'm going to pay you $20, use your account, whatever. I just don't want to worry about the rate limits and stuff. That's gone. Windsurf, they just woke up overnight and that's gone. So a lot of people are very upset. This is a very big no-no if you're like aiming to be any sort of like credible LLM API provider to just cut off access. Google hasn't done that, even though if you take the sort of rumors of the acquisition on face value. But I think this does lead credence that I think Anthropic at least thinks that Windsurf is just a competitor product now. So I think insofar as you're putting odds on whether the acquisition actually closes, the odds have moved up.
Interesting.
Yeah, the other factor that's interesting is how much does this benefit Cursor if you're a developer who loves various Claude models and now maybe you have a reason to go spin up.
You know market share of Cursor versus Windsurf? Have you seen like estimations?
What is it?
I think the numbers I've seen, again, I saw it on my timeline on Twitter. I didn't save it and it's just fast, but someone please look this up. It's something like Windsurf is 5% of Cursor.
Wow. Because based on the market caps, I would assume that Windsurf is like 30%.
I know.
Of Cursor.
The thing that you don't see there is Cursor has entirely developed its business on the IDE.
Sure.
Where Windsurf used to be Codium, which used to be like this serverless GPU company that has significant LLM inference for enterprises. Like they spent the last 4 years doing that.
Yeah.
So they're buying that team, that revenue, that product, as well as Windsurf.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. How do you think that the agentic coding market is shaping up? We've been kind of talking about maybe it's 3 different markets. Like I can go to GPT, I can go to O3 and I can ask it for a question and it will just write code and write Python and execute it. And I don't even have to tell it to write code. It's just if I ask a question that requires code, it will write some code. Then, of course, OpenAI now has Codex, and then they also potentially have Windsurf or you can think about the IDEs as a different entry point into that market. Are we seeing like a true permanent bifurcation between synchronous and asynchronous AI coding usage, or do you think these all blend together at some point?
Yeah, I think that actually you're just catching up on something that has already been a thing. That was the divergence, and actually they're converging. So they already, like, it already started that you had the synchronous ones like Cursor Windsurf, and then you had asynchronous ones like Devin and Factory AI, for example. And they were all sort of like what we call the developer inner loop, which is hands-on keyboard coding, and just developer outer loop, which is PR review and all that kind of stuff, or like file an issue, make a PR, that kind of stuff. So those are merging. The explicit goal of Codex Suite Agents is something I'm going to talk to Greg about later today, is that they will merge those paradigms, just as they're merging the reasoning models and the sort of instant thinking models with GPT-5. And I that totally makes sense. It's technically really hard to do because one's on your machine and one's cloud. And also they're just different set of user experience paradigms. Is my video freezing, by the way?
It is.
It is, but you look great. You look great.
I see you guys great.
How seriously do you take Google's coding agent Jules? Do you think it's just an experiment that they're putting out there, or do you think they'll actually invest in it and try to get real adoption?
You're trying to get me in trouble.
You're conflicted. You're conflicted. I'm sure Google is a part of.
Google's great.
No, we love.
Products-wise, they have had hits like NotebookLM that then have failed to continue the momentum for whatever that. And I think that most people are extremely unfair to NotebookLM. I think they have shipped really well. It's just that you will never repeat the initial wave of excitement that they had.
Totally.
You just never will.
And I mean, NotebookLM seems interesting because that feels like a case study in, if you're a startup and you're fast following an innovation that actually came out of a hyperscaler, that's where you turn into a bullet point on the next dev day or something like that. Because NotebookLM, it felt like there was this amazing, tremendous momentum online. Everyone was excited. And then it was kind of faltering and everyone was like, oh, there's no app. So maybe I'll build the app, and I'm sure some people built NotebookLM apps or NotebookLM spinoffs, and then it just took 6 months, and then there's an app, and I'm sure they will continue to iterate on this. And so I know to some degree, but I think the lesson is probably like, there's probably some narrow window where you can cash grab as kind of like a cynical like ripoff startup, but like realistically, if you found out about the concept of turning a deep research report into an audio product from NotebookLM, like you might be just behind the ball. And so like you don't have the right to own that market long term, as opposed to, I think Devin, Cognition, like they have more of a right, and Factory, they have more of a right to continue to fight with Google's Jules product, because they were really there earlier. They issued the original hype and brokered a whole bunch of enterprise contracts and like kind of got a couple years down the road before. So they're not like a fast follower to big tech. They're actually big tech is maybe fast following them.
Yes, I think it just boils down to execution and everything, right?
Yeah, of course.
And I think like that's one of the reasons why we've actually somewhat broadened out from just engineering to we've added AI product management and AI design.
Okay.
And I think that really good. This is product management. This is just straight up. Can you keep up the momentum? Can you listen to your users? Can you come up with creative new stuff that keeps the momentum going? And some teams can and some teams cannot. Yeah. The only thing I can say with regards to Google and like the fate of Jules is the founding PM of NotebookLM left, and she's speaking here with her own startup. It's it's really hard to keep employees of people who like start interesting products at Big Lab, because they will get any amount of money thrown at them. Put it out.
Venture capitalists strike again.
$20 million seed round, $10 million of secondary if you quit your job right now. Probably not that extreme. I wanted to ask you about Git.
Yeah,
I want to ask you about GitHub. How much do you think Satya cares about, GitHub? Do you think he's, really pushing the team
is that an
on
important wedge into the AI coding market? Because obviously they were first with GitHub Copilot, and you could imagine that it's just a phenomenal distribution channel. And when you look at the value of and the way Microsoft executed around Teams rolling into you're already using Outlook. Now you're using Teams instead of Slack. You could imagine really great adoption, maybe not at the most cutting edge companies that are hyper online, but we could see one of those charts where we're like, oh, wow, like Microsoft's really crushing it in developer tooling.
Absolutely. I think it's extremely core. What would you put GitHub Copilot revenue at right now? If you had to hazard a guess.
500.
Yeah.
500 million. Yeah.
It's
right around there. Wait, you nailed it.
Let's
go. Standalone, that is a publicly listed company.
Wow. Yeah. That's like the perfect.
Here's the thing. Here's the challenge, right? Here's the challenge is that no one is talking about GitHub Copilot.
Is that a challenge?
It's inside of Microsoft, so
yeah. I mean, no one's talking about.
No, I know, but nobody's saying like, look what, nobody's sitting there being like, I'm blown away by Copilot, right?
I think that people who live in the Microsoft stack are because that is what they have access to and like their company agreements are. I think on Twitter there's a novelty bias, right?
Totally.
People always want the new thing. They want to support the little guy. It is.
I support the current thing.
You want to support the current thing. But okay, here's the mental framework I want to leave you guys with on that stuff. Is data gravity and is a thing. Like data attracts the compute, attracts the money, attracts stickiness. Like once my data is one place, everything else moves towards that data. And if my code is the most valuable form of data I have, that's the most expensive data to acquire. So if my code already lives with you, then it's much easier for my coding agents to also live with you. And so they have a home turf advantage. I think the GitHub acquisition back in the day was one of the smartest and most underpriced acquisitions in developer tools history. So like I think you should take that point of view. So like that moat is so strong. Like try to be like a no-name random dev tool startup that comes up and says, "Hey, give me access to your code base. Like I need to run agents on it." They're like, "No, like I'm already doing."
Yeah, what happened with Codex yesterday? There was one user that was reporting that their
private repo information was leaking from one to another.
Was that user error? Did you track that at all? No, you're probably getting busy.
No, I was running the conference. And individual things are going to happen.
Of course,
going to happen. I think GitHub's reputation is going to last it through that. I think
totally.
It has to be really egregious for that kind of stuff to slip through.
I
mean, I think like more broadly, I think that there's a standard stack of what we are calling, what Andrej Karpathy is calling the LLMOS, right? That I think you guys are kind of going and learning about. But I think it's pretty well established by anyone who works on software agents, coding agents, which is you want a sandbox, you want a browsing environment, you want branching, you want fine tuning on your code base. Like there's just a standard stack of things that Claude Code, Codex, Jules, Cognition, Factory, and anyone else in this field, they're all converging on the same thing. And it's just who does it best and who solves it for their customers best. I think that's going to be the name of the game for now.
Makes a ton of sense. Do we have to roll over to the next person?
No, because
you're good.
He had to leave as well.
I mean, I guess my question on data gravity is it seems like if we compare the evolution of video generation models, Google has a really amazing cornered resource in YouTube because that data is so big. It's so many tokens. It's growing, and it also hasn't been like exfiltrated to the public web. But it feels like GitHub, although it is a massive data set, it's not nearly as big. I think somebody collected like 100 million tokens or something. It's just not. It's just no. How big is it? Way bigger? Well, public repos, because I don't think that they can train on private repos, right? Or can they?
Who GitHub?
Yeah,
no.
GitHub.
I don't think they would let themselves.
Yeah, they wouldn't.
Yeah. I don't know. 100 million just sounds way too low. I mean, that's my gut reaction.
Sure.
Keep going.
So the question is like, how durable is the data moat in coding versus in video generation? Purely, I'm just thinking about the raw data set size of YouTube has to be orders of magnitude larger than GitHub. And so I would imagine that Microsoft probably has a less durable advantage versus Google's like kind of march down the video generation pathway if it's truly restricted by data.
Not all data is comparable like that.
Yeah.
So you're comparing verifiable data to unverifiable data. So
Sure.
Code can compile, and if
Yep.
it runs, you can do more code like that, and that creates the RL loop that lets you generate synthetic data for more code. With videos, you have what you have, and you can train on that, and you're technically not even supposed to train on that, but who knows what Google's doing behind the scenes.
Well, I think Google can train on public YouTube videos, right?
I don't know.
I imagine that, like, I've posted videos on YouTube. I imagine that I've opted in at some point.
I think there was like a big fuss with MKBHD and all the other guys.
Yeah.
Picking up a fuss about this, you remember?
Sure. Yeah.
So I don't know. I'm not a lawyer, but like I'm sure it's a completely untested clause that just has to go to court.
Yeah.
I just want to say, if to Google, if you remove John's rate limits on VO3, you can train on our back catalog. Full permission,
please.
Yeah, I think there is that diversity of opinion, right? Like, do you want to just like give yourself to the machine, or do you want to keep your data to yourself? And it's like there's no in between. Like you're either one or the other. It's a very strange dichotomy. Like it's not a spectrum. Like many things in life are a spectrum. This one is not. Like you run into someone, they're either maxi, privacy maxi, or they're like an AI maxi.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. What else is on the cutting edge of debates that are kind of raging at the conference this year versus prior years? We've lived through like the P-Doom debate. We lived through like the Leopold Aschenbrenner era. We've shifted to the geopolitics debates. But what's kind of on the frontier of like hottest topics to discuss?
First of all, Leopold was right, and I don't know if people know that he was on Ilya's team when the sort of board drama happened, and like he was like directly connected to it. Anyway, we haven't lived through it. We are living through it. It is happening. It is directly leading to the geopolitics because he was foreseeing that, and he was exactly right.
Yeah, but the way I would kind of characterize at least my takeaway was that his piece was a little bit of a pivot from the paper clipping doom and a shift to geopolitical competition in AI. Is that a mischaracterization?
No, nailed it.
Okay.
But like he was right.
No, I completely agree. I'm just wondering if it's like, if the consensus is that he was right, then the book is closed. We're not debating that anymore. What are we debating? What's more modern?
What are the debates?
Yes.
How to do great AI PMing,
Sure.
How to run a tiny team.
Yep.
We have a robotics track for the first time that is the Tesla Optimus is speaking physical intelligence.
Cool.
Waymo just overtook Lyft.
I saw that.
That already. Voice is the hottest thing in terms of modalities. Like everyone's sort of building with voice because I think it's like finally good enough.
Yep.
And I think maybe the last thing I will highlight to you is we are also emphasizing security for the first time. Security is like kind of a boring topic. It's nobody really wants to talk about like how to secure your system, but like they actually do now because they have real money running through their product. So there's all that. And then that is like roughly important, equal in size to the excitement about MCP. And so we have an entire MCP track with the Anthropic team here.
Very cool.
Because they're nice enough to come by, and that fills up the whole ballroom that we have. So
are we going to get payments in MCP? Is there a sub track for putting stable coins in there or something like that? What do you think?
There's nothing in the official spec, but we have a number of people, and we have a speaker talking about the sort of MCP economy that's being enabled. I do think that remote MCPs and authorization give you the foundation for basically just remote agents that you can buy and hire. Sure. And that's effectively what it is. It's just that we're still in that stage where these things are still trivial enough that you can actually just write your own. So you have to overcome that build versus buy for this to actually kick off.
Okay.
I would just say, like, I'm not at all a crypto person, but I would say that the crypto people have been ahead of us here, and they haven't found that much yet. You know?
No, makes sense.
But they're actively hunting, and if anyone finds it first, it will be them. It's Circles presenting here. Solana presented at my previous conference, and they're all on it. Stripe is also on it with their stablecoin thing. Something's going to happen here.
Bridge. Yeah. In robotics, are we getting to a point where we're starting to see an ecosystem of companies pop up like we've seen? No, it's just.
Sorry, what do you? So they're all vertically integrated.
Sure. They're
all building their stack. I don't see like any horizontalness.
Nothing.
If that's what you're going for.
That's exactly what I was asking. Yeah.
Yeah, it's so weird. I think there's just so much custom needs that you have to sort of reinvent the universe every time. The one thing that does reuse bots is Cloud Chef, which is a very young company, but I ran across them when I tried their food. So they're a kitchen robot. They do demonstration learning from a single shot from, let's say, like a Michelin chef, and you just give it the ingredients, and you will it will just flawlessly just kind of repeat that cooking for you, and you can hire it for $12 an hour. So it's meant to directly replace human labor, which is very expensive and very labor intensive and unreliable. Let's put it that way.
Sure.
And they can live on top of any other robot arm or Tesla Optimus substrate. Which
Got
is
it.
really,
Okay.
because it's more about the robotics sort of framework than it is about the individual hardware. And I think like that is the first time I've seen that happen. I'm like relatively new to this, but like this is the first time I'm like, oh, okay, like he's actually pretty confident he transfers across any system as long as they have the minimum required set of device drivers, basically. And I'm like, yeah, that's cool. Like, yeah. So he's speaking tomorrow.
What about other pieces of the robotics data stack? Are we thinking about like data brokerage or kind of like a Scale AI, or maybe Scale AI actually working to generate more robotics data? Anything on like the sim to real gap? I saw some semi-analysis summary of a paper that was pretty cool.
So I would say that as a sort of industry practical conference, those are just in the domain of research right now.
It's in research, yeah.
Yeah, it's like there's a lot of papers out there. Jim Fan had a fantastic talk at Sequoia Ascent that I recommend everyone watch if you haven't seen it, about the physical Turing test.
Yeah.
How you need to just do a lot more simulation. And there's a lot of work being done on this. I think Google Genie is the other one that I would recommend people to. There's like a really interesting tie-in between like the generative video world and the robotics world that you wouldn't necessarily expect until you like spend some time in that. But we just haven't focused on it because people cannot get jobs in it. Like I want people to get jobs at my conference. That's like almost the whole reason of
the whole point.
I bring the companies, I bring the engineers, they meet, they fall in love with each other. That's like, to me, that's like the most fulfilling thing.
Can you give a high level update on the hiring market today? What it's fact, what's fact, what's fiction? It's one of those things people love to, talk about how bad things are, and yet every company that I know is like can't find people, and maybe there's a talent kind of gap there. But what's your read?
Yeah, I mean, I think both are right, which is weird. This is actually the topic of my conversation with Greg Brockman later today, because I half the people I meet at my own conference are worried for their own jobs, right? They do ask about this. It's not like they're blind to it, but they're just like, I'm here to see what else I need to do, or how does my skill set need to change for the future? And nobody knows. Everyone says the trite thing, which is like, oh, I'm going from I write the code to I manage things that write the code, so I become an engineering manager. But like, what does that mean in practice? How much knowledge do you need to supervise an agent? You actually kind of need a lot when it goes off track. So like that's super unknown. I do think that the juniors, the like fresh out of college students, they're a little bit cooked, unless they're good. So it really amplifies skill issue. It really amplifies skill issue.
Yeah. It's a hard thing to try to tell somebody. You just need to be
better,
5 times smarter than you are, and then you'll have like a bunch of offers. But I also think that the solution here, and we just hired an intern who already shipped a new product. He started Monday. He just shipped something relatively simple, but it's cool. It's a guest directory. He just sent us a V1 of that product that he built last Thursday. We saw it and we were like, this is super cool. Why don't you start on Monday? And it's that one kind of interaction that can get your foot in the door, that allows you to develop skills and build relationships that, hopefully we work with him for a long time, but even, I'm sure people are already seeing him at TBPN and we'll probably try to poach him before the end of the summer. So it
is like a changing shape of the software engineering employment, because like I feel like the vibe coders can come into organizations that might not have a full engineering department and then have an impact because of the way the tools work. But it's certainly a lot of change very, very quickly.
I would say that's not the consensus yet. That hire a like chief vibe code officer.
Yeah.
Because like humans are still very much needed to patch the gaps that the models are not good at. And it's really painful when they do go wrong, and they do go wrong. You know, I think like all the hypes that you see on Twitter fails to admit like what happens like 1 month, 2 months, 3 months after. And that's honestly what you get paid to do as a software engineer, make maintainable software, not greenfield all the time.
I've even seen people repurpose old projects and say, I vibe coded this in 24 hours. And everyone's like, wait, no, this was published in 2019. Like you spent months on this and you're just hyping this up.
That's misinformation.
I can't govern. I don't really pay attention to what people say there, but I do care what people report for themselves that they've done at serious companies. So one thing I would highlight there is Booking.com did about 10 company years worth of migrations in 3 months with their sort of automated code migration that they did with SourceGraph. So we did a talk with them at my conference in New York in February, which if you want to look that up. So like that company has been around for like 14, 15 years. That's a serious code base, right?
Yeah, totally.
They're just reporting their success. They got nothing to gain from selling you on it. They're just happy about it and they want to teach others. So you want to look for those. They're not trying to sell you anything. They're just like, reporting like their progress at a real company. And that's really what I try to optimize for the conference. It's hard because not everyone's incentivized to do it.
Of course.
You just have to create an environment where they get something out of it by meeting their peers at a thing like this.
Well, give us the plug. Where can people watch your talk with Greg Brockman later today?
It's on YouTube at ai.engineer, .dot. And what would you ask him? I mean, you're having him on eventually. So, what's like the way that you would open the conversation?
Ooh, that's a good question. For Greg, there's a lot, but I mean, the question that I feel like is at the top of mind in like Ben Thompson world this week is the shift from training to inference and how workloads are shifting. This was in the context of NVIDIA earnings, but Greg obviously has intimate knowledge, and so OpenAI is obviously going to do larger and larger training runs, but they're also doing tons and tons of inference. How is that shifting? And then what I want to know, and I don't know how much he can speak to this, is like if we get to a world where we're in 80% inference, 99% inference, something really extreme, does that change the type of data centers we're building? Does that change the chips that we're demanding? Are we moving to ASICs? Are we moving to FPGAs? Something like that to like speed up the actual inference workloads? At what point do we actually bake these models down if they're deemed like good enough and then we're like orchestrating them? If we hit a plateau, that might make sense. At the same time, if there's a lot of promise on algorithmic progress and we're expecting like, oh yeah, we're going to leave the transformer behind eventually. Well then, yeah, you don't want to bake all that down. So I think that's like, it's a little bit more of like a semis question, but it is an interesting question for him as well as he's like seeing the workloads.
It is very relevant. He does have a role to play in Stargate that I'm not super clear about. I'm going to ask him about. I mean, I would say that nobody's betting on the end of transformers, except for a very small number of people that are just experimental. And it's really about just scaling the RL.
I mean, there is this interesting thing that's happening. I believe images in ChatGPT seems to be using a number of different algorithms combined. So there's a little bit of diffusion in there potentially. There's some transformer-based stuff. I don't know if you're pushing back on that, but that's
I'm not. There's a strong hypothesis based on the hints that they have dropped from the people that worked on it.
That there's multiple algorithms at work, right?
It's a diffusion head, the transformer backbone. The rest of it is just regular 4.0, and that's why it's so good at chat and has decent world knowledge. There's not like a ton of complexity there beyond that we know of.
Yeah, and so what I'm interested in is like we saw the demo from Google on diffusion, text-based diffusion, 900 tokens a second. I've heard good reviews about that. I've heard kind of mixed reviews on that. Maybe it's not a path, but what does the future of an LLM look like if we're applying the same path that we've seen in images, where we're seeing an ensemble of models come together to create a better, like even more multimodal, like multi-architectures, because it feels like we're moving further and further away from the single big transformer being the answer to everything. And so what does that mean? Are we going closer or farther away from the single big transformer that is like the God in the weights?
Yeah, this is where I can offer a little bit of coaching for your audience, and maybe you guys have talked to a lot of people, so I don't know where you're at on this. This is where people usually say the term mixture of experts, and they're wrong to use that.
Okay.
And sometimes they say mixture of agents, mixture of experts. They're incorrect. Anyway, we have talked with a lot of the Frontier Lab researchers.
Yeah.
None of them believe that is the way forward. That is an optimization for the current thing, which is
which one? A mixture of experts,
or multiple mixture of architectures.
Mixture of architectures.
Okay. So experiments, for example, with Jamba, from 1821 in Israel, where they mix, for example, like a Mamba layer with transformers.
Sure.
That seems to be promising, but even a correct character was just use the scaling of transformers.
Sure.
I asked a variant of the question you just stated to Noam Brown in an upcoming podcast that we did. We recorded it, we haven't released it. He's the same way. He's like, anything you're trying to do fancy around mixing up weird architectures is just not going to scale. Just scale the basic thing.
Yep.
And he's pretty strongly convicted in that. I know people I can't name at Gemini who's also pretty strongly convicted in that.
Sure.
I have reason to suspect otherwise. Obviously, like you can't shut down anything because like it might be true.
Yeah.
I'm just telling you what the people working on this would say because I've asked.
Okay. Well, I mean, if that's AI,
the last thing I wanted to kind of cover, I would want to get a sense of, prediction markets are pricing in that Google continues to dominate on benchmarks. How much is OpenAI even going to? How much do they even care about being at the top of benchmarks? Is it purely an ego thing, or is it just about usability and value for users and code quality and things like that?
It's usability and value. I think you need to notice that the benchmarks that Google talks about at Google I/O are no longer the benchmarks that OpenAI measures itself on. And I want to stay friends with them, but like there are some that are more sus than others.
Sure.
And I think like at the end of the day, the customer will win. The only one that's clearly been caught out, kind of lying, kind of like being whatever, like underperforming. I got to say it's Apple. When they launched Apple Intelligence, we were all very excited about the Apple Intelligence paper, which is a beautiful document that had no evals apart from their own internal evals. So they were not accountable to the standard set of evals that everyone else has, right? So the step one is you should try to hold yourself to some public benchmark. I know flawed, just do it, But and then so Apple did not do that. And then like now there's a question of like, are you holding yourself to a benchmark that can be gamed? And there's been accusations of Ella Marina being gamed, and unfortunately, that's what Google has put all its chips on. Yeah. They may do that for Gemini 3, but for 2.5, that's what they did, and probably because they spent the last year doing it.
It's all revenue from here on out. Like that is the
revenue
benchmark.
Is the benchmark.
GitHub Copilot, 500 million, size gone for GitHub.
Like, revenue is also tricky.
Yeah,
you guys know how like Gemini. I don't know if you know. Gemini gives 1 billion tokens a day per human. For free. Your personal API token.
Okay.
I'm shitting you. You can set up a camera right now, run Gemini 2.5 Flash on it, run like a frame a second, and ask you to do whatever you want for free.
Wow.
It's absurd. So
let's hear it for Google. Thank you. Intelligence too cheap to meter. We love to hear it.
Okay, like that chart that you saw at Google I/O where their tokens went like this.
Yep.
Now you know why. It's free.
Yeah. No, that makes sense.
I mean, they also have a very, very good model. Don't get me wrong, but I'm revenue is a short-term play. Like you're trying to maximize revenue now, you might cut off yourself from getting the largest data set in the world, which is the sort of early adopter humans that are going to give you their data because they're like, train on me, daddy, and I'm you're giving to me for free, like whatever, train on me. And that's a deal that lots of people, I think it's a theme that we've talked about, is lots of people are going to make.
Yeah.
Juice is free. Why? They can eat your data. Codex is free. Why?
Yep.
So I talked about this in one of my recent posts. Like the marginal cost of software has gone down to zero. And like can it go negative? Will I start paying you for you to use me? Absolutely, because then you become my labeler.
Yeah.
You're a labeler I can never pay for. Usually you have to like hire someone in like the Philippines or something. We've maxed them out. So now I gotta pay someone in Silicon Valley to label my software. So I might as well just give you my coding agent for free, or like even honestly just pay you for good feedback on my coding agents. And why should it stop at like $20 a month when like there are people in New York who I've heard, by the way, they hire former bankers, they hire former hedge fund guys, pay them $500K a year to label.
It's wild. Well, thank you so much for hopping on. Good luck with the rest of the conference.
Let's make this a regular thing.
This is a fantastic conversation.
Thank you for taking the time
we
away
really
from your
appreciate
event, and we'll be there next year, whether you like it or not.
Fantastic.
You're invited for sure.
We'll talk to you soon. Thanks so much for hopping on.
Thanks, Sean.
Bye.
Cheers.
Fantastic. Well, we got to tell you about Wander. Find your happy place. Find your happy place. Book a Wander with inspiring views, hotel-grade amenities, dreamy beds, top-tier cleaning, and 24/7 concierge service. It's a vacation home, but better, folks.
I want the TBPN army to clear out every single Wander all of summer.
Market clearing order inbound.
This is an interesting one. Oscar has joined the Fortune 500 for the first time. I know what you're thinking, and I agree. What? Only now? And Josh Kushner says, I'm deeply proud of the tenacity and persistence of the Oscar team. We've been humbled many times from down 95% from our IPO to now entering the Fortune 500. I am excited for all that is ahead of us. Wow. Congratulations to Josh Kushner. That is a phenomenal run.
Amazing.
And somebody else was quote tweeting this, saying that there's only 2 people who have incubated a Fortune 500 company who are actively investing, and it's Palantir with Peter Thiel and Founders Fund, and Josh Kushner with Thrive and Oscar. So what a phenomenal run. It is rare, but the incubations are starting to work, and the incubations will continue until morale improves.
They will continue.
Until the global economy is growing at 10% a year. Anyway, every person who works in tech needs at least 5 non-tech friends to interact with closely on a weekly basis so they can understand how the general public actually thinks, says Kit Volta. You posted this from a different account. It was a copy pasta. Somebody copied the whole thing. So I found the original.
I shared it.
You shared the fake one, the ripoff.
I shared a ripoff.
Yeah, you shared a ripoff, and it got community noted, and I found the original one right here.
Wait, so somebody just stole it?
Yeah. Yeah, they didn't even screenshot it and put it in Banger Archive.
That is
wrong. 20K on this post. The repost has 15K likes, and so it got community noted. This is a copy paste. You feel like that could be like automated in X, where it's like this is the exact same text as has been posted elsewhere. You should just know that you should maybe go to the source on this if somebody's posting the exact same thing. Except, Josh Steinman would get that every day because he's constantly posting, "Good morning, we are going to win," and so he would have the note every single day. JT Jira Tickets says, web design? You mean digital physiognomy? Very funny. Oh, you put another one in here from JT. Guy who is burnt out from his 6 figures, 5 hours a week, big tech job. You got to just hit the roof and just get some sun. Anyway. Pavel has a good one. I don't think Waymo can work in New York City because during rush hour, you need to break the law to get anywhere. And I'm not sure how you could get away with embedding that in software. And IB says, Travis would have gotten it done. Never too late.
Somebody says full self-driving gladly speeds for me.
Yeah.
I thought this was good from Will. 2 thick scoops. Okay, sounds good. Thank you. And it's Jersey Mike's order pickup at 12:48. Dutch government collapses over migration dispute.
Why is this?
This is a Gmail.
Oh, it's just rolling up multiple emails or something?
This is Apple AI summary.
Oh, yeah. It's an Apple
AI.
Apple Intelligence is, the summaries are so good. It's genius. 75,000 likes. That's a lot of attention on that. You got to upgrade, folks. You're missing out on entertainment.
I would pay Apple to help me produce Apple Intelligent viral bangers.
Yeah. I want to wrap up, but we got to say congratulations to Jesse Michaels. He got on Joe Rogan. He said it was the honor of a lifetime to sit down with the GOAT himself, Joe Rogan.
Many people have called him a young Rogan.
I've called him that. He is fantastic. He's been on a fantastic run with American Alchemy, his podcast. He's climbing the charts. If you're into aliens, AI apocalypses, Bob Lazar, nuclear weapons, secret anti-gravity research, go check out the Jesse Michaels Joe Rogan Experience episode. It's episode 2 1,331. Rogan's putting up big numbers. He's giving us a run, but we're catching up. We're catching up.
It's wild.
In just a couple
other
of years.
Lastly, I just wanted to cover this quickly. AMD has acquired Brium.
Oh, okay.
Reported today.
Interesting.
To help reduce NVIDIA's market dominance when it comes to AI hardware.
Talking to George Hotz, and we're going to have him on the show, but he's been back in AMD. We got Dylan Patel coming on the show Friday. We'll ask him more about AMD and their plan to unseat CUDA as the dominant AI platform.
Yep.
And we have other news. We have doubled the size of the show. Once again, Jordy, hit that gong, hit the real gong for me. Grab this. We're going to Gong Cam. We got 64,000 followers on X. Thank you for everyone who's been around. Oh, there we go. That's great. Thank you for watching. Thank you for supporting us. It's been a fantastic journey.
It is a pleasure.
We got
doing
the whole
business.
crew in the studio. We got a whole bunch more cameras here. We're growing every day.
Damn, we got the studio cam.
The studio cam's
Boys
going.
are cooking.
Thank you for watching. Thanks for all the support.
Leave us a 5-star review
on Apple Podcasts and Spotify.
Especially on Apple Podcasts.
Yeah, I feel like we're doing
make
low
such a
there.
Video-heavy
yeah, it doesn't really make sense. But if you're on Apple and you're listening and you haven't
counts.
left us a review, we'd love a review. So thank you so much. And we'll see you
folks.
tomorrow. We have an awesome day. We have a bit of an AI day coming together with folks from OpenAI and Anthropic coming on. It should be a great show. So stay tuned.
Stacked.
We'll see you tomorrow and have a great rest of your Wednesday. Goodbye.